Beware Romulans bearing gifts.
Hi, this is Eric.
And this is Isaac.
Welcome back to Romulans Bearing Gifts, episode 89. Something else new in terms of format on the podcast, something we've never done in this way before on RBG. And that is we're going to do a single conversation about two episodes combined together, including at least one I know for sure we've done on the podcast. Someone can tweet Sean Homrig or Omrig Sean on X and let him know if we've done the TOS episode before. I really can't remember. But get ready for a twofer with, from TOS, Balance of Terror, and from Strange New Worlds, Equality of Mercy. The reason I didn't say the number from the season for the TOS episode, because I'm not even sure what to call it, because according to viewing guides, they call it 114, 14th episode of season 1. But on Paramount Plus, it's episode 15 of season 1. I don't know if they're counting the cage. I don't know what they're doing in terms of numbering. And I never know for season 1, especially of TOS. But I can tell you that the Strange New Worlds episode, and Isaac probably doesn't know this, was the season finale of season 1 of Strange New Worlds. So yeah. And the other reason why this episode is special for the feed is because though Isaac has been on for a few episodes already, this is your first time ever seeing Strange New Worlds, and also, is it the first Paramount Plus produced content you've seen for Star Trek?
Section 31.
Oh yeah, Section 31. So you've seen Section 31 only in terms of Paramount Plus Star Trek. And so this is your first time with something else, and your first time with Strange New Worlds. And before I start asking Isaac a lot of questions, because there's a lot of things I want to know about what he thought in general, I just wanted to say that a large part of the reason I chose this episode of Strange New Worlds was because, and I don't know if Isaac was able to tell this or not, he'll let us know, but you really didn't have to have seen anything that happened prior on this series. You didn't really. Now, he's going into it cold, so I'm assuming maybe he thinks he wasn't in the loop of certain things. But I can just tell him right now that even if you had been watching from episode 1, you would have been just like you, the first time viewer, going, what is happening right now? Like, where are we? What is going on? Why is this happening? So I don't know if you could tell that or not, but it was designed that way for everyone who was watching it for the first time. So yeah. Because we did a twofer, and if you don't want to answer that question just yet, would you like to focus on the TOS episode to start, jump right into Strange New Worlds, or I just start asking questions in the order they come to my mind?
The latter, please.
Okay, well, let's just address that since I just brought it up. Was that even a thought, or was that something you could detect, or did you just assume, oh, I haven't watched the previous episodes, so there's going to be a lot of context I don't understand in this particular story?
Starting from the very first hit play button, it said previously, or no, it went through its
yes,
unnecessary, oh, this is Star Trek emblem, or the Marvel logo, which pass.
Yes, all major IPs do that now.
Yeah, pass. It immediately said previously on Strange New Worlds, and I went skip because I wanted to know Nothing. I just wanted to know what I was watching. And then when the title sequence came, so I guess like the theme, skip. And then when we got to TOS, I
Wait. Why'd you
did
do that
not
on
skip.
the title sequence?
Well, no, the opening. Sorry, like like after the cold open, it's then like they do the theme
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Why'd you skip that?
because it so unnecessary. I find it like completely unnecessary, and I didn't think. I think it's also a little like I don't know, like a waste of time because it was padding the whole like the runtime itself. TOS, I watched the whole thing. I watched everything. I was like, no, I'm watching everything, man.
Oh man, this would have been one of the. Okay, we're gonna have to do a follow up episode, not necessarily on these stories, but like another Strange New Worlds at some
That's
point,
fair. Well,
because
we're going to.
one of my favorite things with shows, especially older shows, but there are certainly standout newer shows in this respect. I love a good opening title sequence for a show in general, but especially so with a Star Trek series. And not only that, and perhaps other opening title sequences for other Paramount Plus Star Trek shows might be interesting, but this one in particular is very interesting, especially juxtaposed with the TOS one. But there's other reasons why this one, I, I, I was really looking forward to your reaction just to the opening title sequence.
Sorry to disappoint, but nobody can do openings anymore. The TOS one still remains the best.
Are you just talking about Star Trek, or are you talking about shows in general?
Yes. Well, no, I could be talking about everything potentially.
I think there's some really good ones in shows that have come out like in the last 7 years or so.
I mean, the last one that I can remember that's really good was 10 years ago with Daredevil. That one, I had that thing. I kept having that like theme on repeat.
I would consider the Daredevil one the beginning of this new age of the shows that have good opening title sequences. That was the beginning. Oh no, actually, technically, Game of Thrones was the beginning of this trend.
Well, when you get the Iron Man guy and the Pacific Rim guy. Well, listen to the entire Pacific Rim album, by the way, by him. It's really good.
Okay. But yeah, Game of Thrones was the modern age of very interesting opening title sequences, extremely interesting. And then yes, Daredevil carried the torch. And then yeah, there's other notable ones that are good, like Westworld and gosh, I can't think of the many the standout. I told you about Andor, but Andor's unique. It's really great, but it's not like all these other ones that we've been talking about. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so you skipped that, you got through that, and you were going to answer the question.
I forgot the question.
As you were actually watching the episode, did you have a sense that
Oh, right.
that maybe you had missed out on things, or maybe you didn't miss out on things?
Seeing as how the other night on the Novice Elitist, I subjected you, not twice, but the other night I subjected you to Legend of Korra Book 2, Episodes 7 and 8. It only seemed right that you do the same thing to me with Strange New Worlds, and the next episode a little different, of course, because it's a little more standalone than this one is, where there is like a through line. There is a there's a storyline going through, but I didn't want to know anything. I wanted to actually go in without knowing much and see how much I was able to gauge, not from memory of TOS or any other person that I would watch reviews of the show over, but instead just see like, can I follow along, and does it make sense? This show is very easy to follow. You can be a layman and you can come.
We're
in
talking
at
about
any
Strange New
point.
Worlds right now.
Sorry, yeah. In the series Strange New Worlds, you can skip the previously on segment and you will lose nothing. Maybe because I like have a basic understanding of Star Trek, but I think even then it's like at the very end, spoilers, number one gets charged and is taken away to be held for crimes against was it, like genetic engineering or whatever. So that's not hard to follow. It's like, okay, well, she broke
And
the
also,
law. And they mention it in episode. They set it up as well that she has this like dark past.
yes,
It's outright stated, so it wasn't hard to follow.
yes, and when we get the reveal of that at the end of the episode, even though we knew tiny pieces of it, those of us who had been watching since episode 1, trust me, we were all just about as surprised as you were watching it for the first time out of context.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm surprised. I was just like, well, there was setup that uh I guess I'm like Pike in alternate reality, or alternate timeline, excuse me, where he's like, what is this about? Where he's just like the audience. I guess that was the reason why. Like we're all
Mm-hmm.
the audience alongside Pike, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we're experiencing exactly what everybody
Yes.
in that reality or timeline is up to date on stuff, but he's not because he's an outsider from a time traveler. I mean, so we're in the shoes with him. We're in the seats with him of like what's going on in this roller coaster.
Yes. Yes. And okay, which story did you watch or episode did you watch first?
I watched Strange New Worlds episode 10 first, and then I watched afterwards TOS episode 15 or 14, whatever you want to call it.
Right. Had you seen the TOS episode before?
I did. I completely forgot I had, but
Okay.
in
Oh, okay.
brief, I think I missed some parts. In when I first watched it, this was years ago. This is like maybe 10 years ago or something like that.
Whoa.
So I didn't see like everything, but I clearly remember. I think I know who that is. Or sorry, I think I know who the Vulcan is. Vulcan. Sorry, the Romulan is.
Right. I know what you're saying. Wait, so if you saw this like 10 years ago and you saw parts of it, was that because it was like on television or you were watching what someone else was watching?
Yeah, it's on cable. It was on cable. So then, like, I probably switched to sports or something like that, or
Okay.
something
Okay.
else that was just attracting my attention.
I got you. Approximately back then, whenever you were getting into TOS, approximately how many episodes do you think you saw?
Oh, probably like less than 20.
Okay.
And
Okay.
this is again, this is on those classic TV channels that everybody has around their parts. This is universal. Literally, like I know in any part of the world, you'll have like if you have a cable station or whatever.
I was going to
There,
say this is not Universal, it's Paramount, but I got you. I got you
no, no,
now.
no, no. Okay, well, this is global, but I'm pretty sure there is like a classic television channel that has like old
Yes.
syndicated, episodes of whatever is in that region. So not doesn't necessarily mean it's Star Trek, but just whatever's in that region, they'll play old episodes of something and be like, I remember this from like
Yeah.
50s, 70s, whatever.
And with services like Pluto TV and others, now it's like even more pervasive.
Precisely.
So, okay. Oh, well, that's good. Did you, and obviously you didn't realize you had seen it before until you started watching it today. So, what made you choose Strange New Worlds first out of the pair?
Because I wanted to get the slop out of the way so I could watch like the fun stuff, the good
Oh,
stuff.
wow. Oh,
Sorry.
wow. Oh,
Sorry. I know
wow.
I have to hold myself back a little. I gotta have an intellectually stimulating conversation before I can vent.
Oh, okay. 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 I'll sort of let you take the reins. Or actually, I'll set you up with a question and then
That's
give the
fair,
reins
of
over to
course.
you.
This is what Saturday night was like again. Your perspective.
From watching both episodes, regardless of what order you watched them in, what were like maybe a couple of your standout overall takeaways after watching both?
Um, so because I treat the Paramount Plus era of Star Trek pseudo Kelvin, as I like to call it.
Pseudo Kelvin, you said?
Yeah, pseudo like
Okay.
false Kelvin
I know
because
what you mean. I just wasn't sure you said Kelvin or Calvin.
I am waiting. I am waiting for the next Kelvin movie. By the way, like they're planning something. I know that. There's no way they're not. But I like to treat all these like they're in the Kelvin universe.
I'll talk about that if I remember at the end of this conversation.
I'll try to remember that as well to bring it up. These are similar to we don't have any ideas of where to take Star Trek in the future, so we're just gonna have do what's in the past because it's all unexplored or whatever, or we can. This is definitely like bringing up comic books, mainstream American superhero comic books. Excuse me, I gotta be very specific. Where we start to
Okay, I think I see where you're going.
just I don't want to say regurgitate, but we will kind of be a little more stagnant with the characters and instead try to already use established characters to explore new ideas and ruin the timeline a little more with what was already established. Whatever be darned. So this is just a run. We'll get
You're
a
talking about
run.
Paramount Plus shows or Strange New Worlds as a whole.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I'm aware, at least in TOS, I don't know if Christopher Pike ever knew that he was going to die. Like he had visions of the future and he knew that this was where he was going to
Correct.
be.
Correct.
It is a science fiction trope, and there's nothing wrong with exploring that trope. It is just that they had to use Star Trek to do, or Strange New Worlds to do, explore this trope, which is fine, whatever. That's a given. So we have the Flash paradox, or yeah, the Flash paradox. Excuse me. No, Flashpoint paradox. What I was saying. Sorry, no. Yeah, Flashpoint, which was a big thing that happened in 2011 in DC Comics, where the Flash goes back in time because he's sad. Barry Allen, sorry, he's lamenting and sad that his mom has been dead for so many years, and so he goes back and saves her life. And from there, many things happen and change the course of history when he goes back to the future, or the present, excuse me, and realizes that for saving her, history has changed. So, what was her name? But anyway, yeah, Mrs. Allen, Nora Allen. That's right, Nora Allen must die or else. Sound familiar? Basic premise of the Flash movie from 2023. That's why I was alluding to, like, oh, hey, they beat him to a year.
Right. And the only reason I'm familiar, I've always known the name Flashpoint, but I didn't know what the story actually
Yep.
was until I watched it on the CW Flash series, Transpire.
Oh yes, oh yes. Yeah, end of season
So
one.
that was the first time I learned like what Flashpoint was about.
Yeah, doing it early on, even though they should have done it, waited for 10 years. But anyway, sorry, my ego is showing. Pardon me. I gotta humble myself a little.
Okay, Egg.
So we have this. We're stuck with this premise in Strange New Worlds of Christopher Pike knows that he is going to die, and he does want to try to bend fate. But this is a series where, because of the canon, you cannot change the timeline, or else. So he's probably tried this in previous episodes of just small things, and obviously today, like I say today, but in this episode, in the beginning, he meets this commander, or at least this one head of this station, this Federation station, and he
Yes.
sees his son, and this kind of puts Pike feels visions, or at least familiarity with the kid, and realizes that he is going to uh, be not his downfall, but that definitely there's going to be a impact with this child in the future of what he's seen and haunted him. And he does not wish for this to happen. So he just by the simple fact of trying to write a letter, similar to what Marty McFly does in Back to the Future, the first one, where he wants to prevent Doc Brown from being shot by Libyans in the present in 1985. So he writes a letter in 55 so that hopefully he'll be able to read it one day without his knowledge and prepare so that he doesn't get shot, and wears a
Right.
bulletproof vest. So even the slightest thing of a letter, Pike is trying to, maybe this will change. Selfishly, perhaps, yes, but it's self-preservation by this point. But along comes the plot script, whatever, whoever the writers are, and in the form of Pike from the future with Star Trek II laden vests, uniforms, pardon me,
Yes.
saying, you can't do that. You can't do that. Here's a timely, wobbly thing. Our crystallized TARDIS is right here. You just touch it and boom. Alternate reality or alternate timeline in the future, and it's a recreation of the balance of I forgot the
Terror.
Terror. Thank you. The balance of terror. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we see an alternate version of, or it's like the comic books What If.
Elseworlds, what have you? Yes.
Yeah. What if Pike survived his accident?
Or if I may, when I don't know if it was Brian Michael Bendis was still writing Miles Morales at this point, but redoing all of Spider-Man's famous arcs and with Miles Morales, where he does Spider-Man No More.
Yeah, it's the ultimate comic. Yeah. Well, the ultimate universe which started with Ultimate Spider-Man introducing Miles Morales. So that was like the whole concept of that whole universe.
Well,
was like a redo.
No, he didn't release until 2011. Ultimate Spider-Man was ongoing from 2001.
Right, that was the beginning of the Ultimate Universe, was just
Yes.
that single title, and then they started expanding.
Uh-huh.
The one I thought of where I thought you were going initially, but because I was using my brain instead of your brain.
Well, hang on. I could have. We don't know this. But there is a timeline out there where I did use it.
When I said, "Oh, I think I know where you're going with this," when you mentioned comic books, my brain, when it comes to these types of stories, especially because I'm more of a Marvel guy, my brain went immediately to Days of Future Past.
See, I was going to bring that up, but then I also thought of Age of Ultron because there is time travel shenanigans in that as well.
Yes, I'm familiar with that one too.
Which dumb sometimes, whatever.
It's just I didn't know the Age of Ultron story until the movie came out, but I knew Days of Future Past before the X-Men movies.
And it's quite the deviation.
Right. Oh yeah, in that sense, yes.
Well, the movie's better because Ultron's more in the movie than he is in the comic. Whoops.
Yeah, but anyway, so moving on, or where were you going from there, or where are you going anywhere from there?
Well, this is now into the getting kind of the bad flavor that obviously I have in my mouth. This is a bad. I feel like I've soured the audience here. I say sorry, ladies and gentlemen, those between an affiliate, but I think you all probably wouldn't. You'd find that more, oh, he's just being sarcastic. He's not being true to that. So it's like, okay, I got to give this episode the benefit of the doubt. It was very hard. It was definitely very hard. And I'm glad that I did watch the Strange New Worlds episode first.
Okay.
And I do mean that seriously, because then when I watched the TOS episode, I didn't want to compare apples and oranges here and what I like and what I dislike. It was more like, okay, now I can see what they did here versus what they did in TOS, versus what they did in this remake, but I understand why they remade it. In Strange New Worlds, this is just the premise that we're given, which is fine. Biggest thing, for instance, that you can see how far science has come is the use of in TOS when they're trying to locate the ship, the Romulan ship,
Mm-hmm.
They're like, okay, there's a signal that it kind of releases every few seconds, so they're kind of like almost using echolocation in a way, even though same thing. But in the Strange New Worlds premise, instead, because of gravitational waves being our version of sonar in space, they're like, well, we can't see it, but gravitational waves exist, so we'll just see where it's bending around gravity.
Yeah.
Which, I kind of bought that.
Which totally makes sense in our 2025 science parlance that we understand. I mean, general public understands.
Yes. There's no brother, though. There was no brother in the TOS series, but that's fine.
Nope.
Well, okay.
Nope.
Sorry.
Nope.
I don't. Sam's in there. Sorry. I just mean he's not obviously present in that episode.
Oh, right.
Pardon me.
But that fits with the fact that things are obviously different.
Yes.
So
correct.
That fits because I can't say. Well, we can say we don't know.
I think I've seen that episode of TOS. I can't remember.
I think he's in 2 episodes, or maybe he's mentioned in 1 episode and then we actually see him in a different episode.
Yeah, he's in TOS. I remember that. I just can't remember which episode.
Oh, for sure, but I think it's only 2 episodes.
Yeah, something like that.
And I know for sure the one where we see him in.
And again, it was just a throwaway line. I say line, but it was, not throwaway, excuse me. It was for the episode and to give Kirk depth at that time. But since it's the problem of we need lore, this show definitely tries to explain all that, which is whatever. Anyways, have I answered the questions, or would you like me to continue going on?
Go ahead and continue.
Let's see, where else are we here? Okay, so we're in this alternate reality, or alternate timeline, excuse me, not reality. Timeline, excuse me, future timeline, I suppose, of things not meant to be. And the biggest thing for me was having to remove the fact of why should I care about any of the impact that I'm seeing on screen when this is not real. And I just mean that from a basic, audience investment standpoint. This is not to, bemoan and belittle this series for already having low expectations of it. This is me saying, just in general, when you're doing something involving alternate timelines, why should I care when by the end of it, I know the status quo is going to remain the same.
Can I answer the question?
By all means. And again, this I'm not trying to be negative here. I'm literally trying to answer this question.
No, yeah.
Please.
So, that type of thing you're talking about is when you have a story, especially with time travel stories, but it's not just time travel stories. There are other genres that do a version of this. So with time travel, it's obviously, like you say, it is like an alternate reality or an alternate timeline. And so, right, we're assuming things are going to reset. It's not like the rest of the series is going to continue in this timeline. Like, we get that. So, right. So, whatever happens, whoever dies, whoever does whatever, it doesn't have lasting impacts in the main storyline, or the main storyline world. And that happens a lot in Doctor Who, of course, with time travel, etc. But not only Doctor Who, like, it happens, like, for instance, in supernatural series where, like in Buffy, they touch a crystal and all of a sudden, like, the world's not exactly what they're used to, or, it can be done other ways. And you get the same feeling in those episodes as well, which is, okay, a bunch of crazy stuff is going to happen, but we know the world is not going to stay like this in the show that we're watching. So you go, what are the stakes? And to me, the stakes in general, for all of these examples, including the Strange New Worlds episode, is that, and in Doctor Who, it's the same, which is, you're right, there's going to be a big reset button, so to speak, and things are going to go back to normal. But I think what you get out of it is, in all these stories and the different shows and Doctor Who, while the world gets reset to the main timeline or whatever, it's about how it affects the characters, because in most of these stories in other shows and this one, there is at least one character or more than one who remember the experience, when they return back to status quo. And to me, that's probably the purpose of it, is how it now affects that character going forward in the main timeline.
You had the exact answer that I also had, which I was going to give as well, which is, it doesn't matter for me, it matters instead for the character, because now they have to be on their toes, or they have knowledge that nobody else has, unless you're Spock with a mind meld,
Right.
who could see alternate timeline, excuse me. If I may,
Go ahead.
I think this also works. Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow. A fantastic movie. And it deals with, time resetting each time Tom Cruise's character is killed, until the very end, where there is stakes to it, where it's like, I want to see them succeed.
That movie is one of my favorite examples of what I call the Groundhog Day genre. But and then what else? I'm sorry, what else were you saying outside of Edge of Tomorrow?
So this is, the whole idea that we're going through is, this is for Pike to experience this and to the universe get it in his head, you have to die.
Yeah, correct.
This ain't one of those things where you can fight fate literally, and rules are made to be broken. This is hard, sort of, not really, science fiction of, no, you got to keep the timeline stable or else.
And I'll say something else. So the first time I watched this, and when I watched it again today, and it's been just about 2 years, since I saw this last. So I obviously remembered the broad strokes, but I forgot some of the details in the Strange New Worlds episode. And the first time and the recent time I watched this, I kept, because Pike in the episode is trying to know, like, what is the big thing he's supposed to learn, like the disaster that wrecks the world or the timeline because he lives, instead of being not killed but heavily changed. And both times I watched this, I thought Kirk was going to give his life to save the day, and then that would be, the massive change that could not happen. The whole world would be affected. And both times I thought it was Kirk, and both times I was wrong, because it was actually Spock instead. And also, Spock is not killed, but he is maimed in a way that we know Pike gets maimed in the Prime universe or in TOS. So yeah, and it does make more sense if you're familiar with events of TNG, and then of course the Kelvin timeline. Spock is really important in the universe, and again, if you're familiar with TNG, like the entire series, then you know Spock had a lot to do with Romulans in that particular series. So that kind of makes sense.
See, we can't do Kirk dying because we already did that in Into Darkness.
Oh, yes, which in and of itself is playing with that. It's like the original story, but it's not. Well, this is like a microcosm of the Kelvin timeline in the sense that in the Kelvin timeline, we all know Nero comes back and then Spock Prime comes back. Obviously, that makes the rest of the Star Trek universe change in very many unexpected ways.
I'm just gonna forget this. I'm saying it now. Even though this is usually my end bit, I'm saying it right now in the middle. Go buy your red matter coin, Bitcoin there. Make sure your Ethereum. Make sure you sell it. Sell your stonks at the right hour, the right day, on the eclipses and the lunar eclipses and all other stuff.
Is this the thing you do?
This is the thing I do, man. I put my freaking tin foil hat on, take a cast iron frying pan, and go start, bang it, clang it, on the bridge nearby.
No, I was thinking your bit was anytime someone brings up the Kelvin timeline, then you talk about your red matter coins.
I mean, yeah, of course, you mentioned that exact thing. So it's like red matter coins available now.
Oh, now I get the shtick. Okay, I got it. Oh, okay. Yeah, another day we'll talk more about the Kelvin timeline and red matter because as I continue to watch those films in my own time, watch the Kelvin films again, I keep starting to have new thoughts about the red matter in general. But that'll be a different day, a different podcast. Do you want to continue with your critiques of the Strange New World episode?
So they did say again, and this is not fair to this series. Or this episode, excuse me. I'll give it this, but there was something ridiculous about the ending where not the ending, but once where the neutral zone's right there, and then Enterprise is on one side, Berta Prey's on the other, then a bunch of Romulan ships show up, and then Kirk comes in with all these what the Romulans think is a Starfleet fleet of starships. Excuse me. Turns out no, that was kind of cool, I guess. Clever on Kirk's part to make him think that it's a bunch of absurdly high level class levels of ships, Starfleet ships. But there was there's just something weird. Not weird. I just kind of I don't know. I wasn't wowed by that or oh man, stuff's getting serious. I'm I don't know. It just felt ridiculous. I felt this is just I maybe I've seen this before. I don't know. I wasn't feeling that.
My take on that reveal in the episode and that moment, for me, it wasn't about, oh, wow, this armada. For me, this is something that I've always felt with Star Trek and other sci-fi spacey stuff since I was young. It was just, oh, look, we get to see more vessel types that we've not seen before in this iteration of this show with this technology for special effects and digital, or I don't want to call everything a digital model because they might use some real models sometimes. I'm not sure about Strange New Worlds in particular, but it's just watching something that takes place in a time period we're loosely familiar with already, but then seeing it done with modern special effects. I'm always keen to see all the vessels and ships that they show, whether they're Federation or Vulcan or whatever they are. So that to me was the most exciting thing about it, watching this episode. But yeah, I mean, I don't really care. Oh, there's an armada. I get it. But that's the part that made me happy, though, or excited, just seeing new ships.
Oh, of course. Just as your inner Star Trek fan of wanting to see more ships, not being affiliated with that just yet, and not having that click moment for me of ooh, ships. No, I could. Yeah, I'm sorry. It wasn't winning me over with that. There was just, I don't know. There was just something either underwhelming or just oh, we're doing this again of just a bunch of now we go bigger. And I'm
right. That's the vibe I was getting. I was about to ask that if you're feeling that, oh, we're about to go bigger.
Oh, so it's a bunch of Star Destroyers with Death Star tech? Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we're about to focus on Kirk in Strange New Worlds, the actor and the performance, etc. And before I let you respond to that in
Please.
particular, I'll just give you a little bit of context. If I'm remembering correctly, because I didn't research this to make sure I'm still being accurate, but if I remember correctly, at the time this series was coming out, it's obviously season one. This is the finale, the 10th episode of season one. I don't think we, as regular viewers of the show since it premiered, I don't think we knew that Kirk would even appear in this show at all. So even though it is an alternate timeline, the fact that we're seeing him on screen, um, I think that was a surprise. It wasn't like how it has been with Strange New World season 2 and 3, where they already spoil all the surprises of like guest actors and appearances like 6 months in advance. I think they kept this a secret. So that was an extra surprise of, oh, I didn't even know we'd ever see Kirk. Or maybe we would in a future season, but it wasn't a guarantee or anything in season one that we'd even see Kirk. That being said, we obviously see him. What was your just general take of this actor and his performance in this role, et cetera, et cetera?
I gotta give him this. It's similar to like Spock. I was warming up to the Spock actor.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he did, an admirable job with the role. Like, I'm not asking for Nimoy, I'm just asking for Spock. I say asking for Spock because remember, Nimoy is not Spock. So, just I say just fill the role. Okay, sorry, I don't mean it that way.
Okay, if we're talking about, we'll get back to Kirk, but I just want to ask about Spock for a
Go
second.
ahead.
So between, obviously, there's Nimoy, and we'll just say he's the gold standard right now for playing Spock. Who do you think better encapsulated the essence of Spock between Quinto or Quinto and this actor?
It's hard. This is. Hmm. I guess this one's supposed to be Prime Spock, but I still think
Right.
it's pseudo Kelvin Spock.
Okay.
Putting that aside, and there is dialogue that is directly lifted from TOS.
Yes.
So Balance of Terror, excuse me. So I feel bad for Quinto. I don't want to like just throw him under the bus. That's
Yeah, forget about it's a Kelvin timeline. This is supposedly prime. Just the embodiment of the character, the performance, the look, whatever you want to judge it on.
I would have to go with this one just because this Spock seems to be in control of his emotions. I don't know what that was like in the prior Paramount Plus series, but this one at least seems to encapsulate what Spock would become later in TOS.
Yeah. So yeah, some more behind the scenes for someone who is just jumping into Strange New Worlds. Had you been someone who's been watching it from the beginning, you would have noticed that the way Spock is in this episode, because they're in Pike's future, he is much more like the TOS Spock. But in regular episodes of Strange New Worlds, he is not yet that Spock. Just saying. That would have stood out to someone who was a regular viewer of this show.
Well, 7 years is a long time. People can change then. If people listen to my stuff from 2020 and then in 2027, whatever I sound like in there, it'll definitely be very different.
And the reason why this is part of the lore of the show is, again, people always point to Spock seeming incredibly different in the cage compared to the rest of TOS. So this is kind of hearkening to that, that he was. They're playing along with the cage being canon and saying Spock was a lot different, 7 years prior.
Yeah, what's with the eyebrows? Wow, how come they're not aligned with the cage?
But when they first came out with Star Trek 2009, for playing a young Nimoy Spock, I thought Quinto was just like fantastic. Um, I'll say more about what I think about this Spock after we get back to Kirk. So back to Kirk in this episode. What do you think about the actor, the performance in general? He's supposed to be playing obviously William Shatner, Captain Kirk. What's your thoughts on that?
Again, no one's Shatner. Not trying to be. That's fine. Um, very much encapsulate. I think taking a lot of cues from Wrath of Khan again,
Mm-hmm.
where I kept thinking of what's the no win scenario? Something Maru.
Kobayashi Maru.
Thank you. I feel like they condensed all of that into a lot of the dialogue people have about Kirk. Not like especially when Sam. I got it right. Yeah, Sam Kirk. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, when Sam was, when what was it? When Pike was asking Sam about him, I was wondering, or not wondering. I was wondering, or I was thinking. Oh, I guess they took a lot of the dialogue, not dialogue, but based a lot of the scenarios, or at least a lot of the dialogue, off of stuff from Wrath of Khan potentially, and of course the entire TOS series itself.
Mm-hmm.
Was Kirk not like under Pike, or am I just thinking of '09 in canon?
You're thinking of '09.
Okay, there you go. My bad.
Because it was canonical before Strange New Worlds existed. That, and I'm not sure from where. Maybe throwaway lines in TOS or something.
Or books.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be really. But it could be from books, but that wouldn't be considered canon until it becomes on screen.
Listen, like the Star Wars Legends, those Star Trek books were
Right.
canon at one point.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Star Trek books, I don't think are ever written or were never written as if they were supposed to be canon. Like,
Oh, tell that to some fans.
but anyway, whether it came from books or throwaway lines in the actual series, I'm
Or
not sure.
compendiums.
But it is understood in Star Trek lore prior to Strange New Worlds that before Kirk was the captain of the Enterprise, he was the captain of the Farragut.
Okay.
So they didn't just make that up for this episode.
I didn't think so. I didn't know the names, but I always assumed that he was, underneath Pike is not, I guess
That's a Kelvin thing.
that's a Calvin thing. Thank you for correcting me.
I will say that for myself and most other people on social media at the time this episode came out, we were excited to see Kirk, but then immediately not excited because this actor, who I understand was previously known for being in, what is that series called? Vampire Diaries? I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, I never watched it.
Right, I never did either. But apparently, the actor was a known face at this point because of his role in that series, which I also never saw. I'd never seen him before, period, until this. And I, as well as many other people, just thought this really doesn't feel like Kirk. Like the other people who are characters, OG legacy characters that are in Strange New Worlds, they all feel a lot more like who they're supposed to be, except for Kirk. Oh, the Doctor too, but I'm not going to get into him because he's not as important a character. The Doctor in Strange New Worlds, but Kirk, of the really important legacy characters, seems like the less like who he's supposed to be compared to the other newer iterations. But I will say though, because this is the first time we see him playing Kirk in Strange New Worlds, as the seasons and episodes have continued in present day 2025, he has totally grown on me
Oh, I assume so. That's always what happens.
in this role. Because when I watch this again now, I still have that feeling of, nah, he's not really Kirk or even a Kirk facsimile. But his own acting style changes playing the role, when we see him again in the future of Strange New Worlds. So I actually quite like him now. And also seeing him, doing the, what do they call it? The, what do they call it when you're out promoting your show or movie and you keep talking to all the interviewers? It's like the
Interview circuit.
yeah, it means interview circuit. I just can't think what the actual phrase is. But for the promotion of the season 3 and seeing that actor being out there, representing the show as an ambassador of the show, that also has really made him grow on me because he just seems like one of those actors in a thing who's like, he is really playing the ambassador role really well. And he comes across in those interviews as just like a really likable, down to earth kind of guy.
Or he's acting that way.
So, right. Either way, though,
I'm kidding. I don't know. I'm not throwing shade.
I never knew this actor before Strange New Worlds, and now because you also know that there's other actors that we see going on the circuit who like they take away from the thing because they're so whatever they are. I'm not going to name anyone from the MCU world or anything like that.
But they could be acting. You don't know. They're actors.
But you know the ones though who come across as you don't want to meet them in real life when you see them do those types of interviews.
Well, again, but aren't they? Can they also just be acting?
Well, that's a weird thing to do when you're promoting the show, to act like a curmudgeon-y person in the show or movie.
They're supposed to take on a role, right? And fit that role itself. So
that's not how promotion tours work. I'm pretty sure there's no publicist that is like, yeah, keep subverting their expectations in these interviews. I don't think that's a strategy. But anyway, I was like very eyebrow raised, skeptical of this guy being cast when I saw this episode the first time. I pretty much take it all back now. He's really grown on me. Just like Anson Mount, who I was familiar with before Strange New Worlds, I have a new profound respect for the actor now with his working with in relation to Star Trek in general. And I think it was Carl who met Anson Mount in real life at a convention a few years ago, or a few years ago. And Carl only has like the best things to say about meeting Anson Mount in person.
Unless he was acting.
Oh gosh. But hey, we all act. I mean, those of us who are not professional actors.
What is real?
We all act, a way, like present a face to the public.
You ever wonder why we're here?
Oh boy.
I will say this though, if I may, with the actors at least with like Pike and I guess the other like Uhura, and Spock, for them, their roles feel like they have been doing a air quotes season, not so much, but they have been doing these roles for a while, so they feel comfortable in them.
Correct.
I'm not doubling down, or I'm not like throwing Kirk actor under the bus, but I will say this does feel like it's his first take. I say first take, but this does feel like his first episode. So, as you had said, pardon me for interrupting, in season 2 or 3, he's gonna start to like, okay, I know how to handle this character, and then by season 3 or whatever, people will he knows the role and people will be comfortable with him. So that's the not positive, but I get it.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that 100%. But also, like what I said about Spock, how because this is Pike's future, Spock has changed. Because we see Kirk in the future in Pike's time, so there's something similar going on. You know what I mean? So there's like the Spock actor, he's purposely playing Kirk 7 years older. You know what I mean? Even though it's our first time seeing him.
And the other fact is that this is a whole different scenario again, where because he left, because Pike survived this ordeal or this fated death that awaits him, this destined death. Kirk doesn't have Spock. Kirk doesn't have Bones. He doesn't have what's his face? I keep wanting to say Dean, but whatever the pilot, not pilot, whatever the ensign, it's not ensign, but whatever the guy in TOS is, he doesn't have that guy who he does need to push it. He doesn't have all those factors in the equation itself. So we got a very different
yes.
answer.
And I think that's another thing they're trying to show is the importance of Kirk and Spock being like a team. Yeah, and I think that's another thing they're trying to put into the performances by design, how different they would be without each other. Okay, nudging in another direction. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the look of the sets and the costumes, in particular, the bridge of the Enterprise in Strange New Worlds versus TOS, and the bridge equivalent of the Romulan
Bird of Prey. It has a name to it. I'm aware. I'm calling it what they call it.
Yes, and that's what I was trying to think of. Because I usually call it by its name rather than Bird of Prey. But anyway,
Okay.
what do you think about the comparing and contrasting of the costumes and the set design of the personnel and the respective bridges from TOS to SNW?
Okay, I can only do a few acronyms, and then I start to like just.
Strange New Worlds.
I know it's strange anywhere. I was just like, okay, only the ones that I like care about. This is why Voyager and Enterprise are so easy to remember. So I think I'm stealing your whole thought process over this. If you recall, this is one that you gave to me, but I'll obviously give my actual answer. Is I believe Caleb has talked about this and lamented about why, or well, not just Caleb, many people have lamented, especially when it came to a Kelvin timeline when it first started, and how big and bright and bold everything was. And I believe you came with the idea that we are seeing what the people in the 60s were seeing when they looked at the Enterprise
Yes.
on TV. It's high tech. It's like, oh wow. So they're just what is it? It's like it's translating by way of, well, we're gonna have to keep updating just so that we understand this is a very high piece of equipment. As technology in real life progresses, we have to showcase that in our fiction, because nobody's gonna want to see things from like old analog or just old antiquated and outdated pieces of technology in their series. We can't do that. We're in the future.
Yes.
So that's the answer that you're giving.
The way I explained it the first time I came up with this theory a year or so ago, and the reason I came up with the theory was because ever since Discovery had come out on Paramount Plus and then Strange New Worlds, because technically Strange New Worlds was a spin-off of Discovery, I have been constantly trying to reconcile, because this is Prime Universe, this is Kirk Spock, this is their ship. I was always trying to reconcile it, and about a year and a half ago, it dawned on me that how come we don't ever get bumped when we watch like gladiator movies or Bible picks? Oh, this one came out in the 50s, this one came out in the 70s, but they're covering, the same relative time period of gladiators or whatever. We don't get bumped. Now I get it, it's not like a canonical universe, so to speak, but we don't go, well, wait, Roman times look totally different in the 1950 version of the Ten Commandments or whatever. There's not Romans in the Ten Commandments, but you know what I mean. And then we see like a modern like gladiator from the year 2000, and we don't go, wait a minute, this doesn't look like the Roman Empire films I've seen in previous decades. And one of my favorite examples on this same track is I like to bring up on our movie podcasts the movie The Right Stuff, circa 1980 or 82, Apollo 13, circa 96 or 95, and then First Man, which came out in 2016 or something like that. And
Yes.
all three movies exist in the real world, like 6 to 10 years apart from each other. But the cinematography, the art design, set design, like you can really tell that film's from the 80s, that film's from the 90s, and that film's from the 2010s, even though they all kind of take place in and around each other. And that's how I've reconciled Star Trek, for instance. That, and I liked what you were saying at first, but like, this is how a 1960s audience envisioned the 23rd century. And now we're seeing what a 2025 audience, how they would see the 23rd century. And going along with something else you said, I've said this before on RBG. For those who don't know, there's a certain episode of DS9, which I think we did already. I don't know. But there's a certain episode of DS9 where time travel is involved, and members of the crew of DS9 end up doing like Marty McFly in Back to the Future 2, where he goes back to where he's on stage, but now he's up in the rafters. So DS9 crew get in the rafters of a TOS episode, and they use Forrest Gump like special effects to mix them into original footage. And so the whole aesthetic, and they rebuild a bunch of sets from the particular episode TOS in which they're in. And it was so cool. It was such a notable episode of DS9 when that released. I was completely enamored and enraptured by that episode because you were seeing all the same types of 1960s costumes, design, set designs, lighting, everything. And it was so much fun, which I think is great for one episode. But if you're going to release a whole new season on Paramount Plus in 2022 or 2024 or whatever, I don't think you could do an entire season or entire series being so what do you call it? Pedantic about making everything look identical. You know, it works with something like Star Wars when you have the original trilogy and then you have things that come out later like Rogue One that take place in the same time. That's different because original trilogy Star Wars as we know does not look dated 1977. It looks very timeless. So that one kind of works if you're making a modern story in the time period because it's always looked timeless. But you know, TOS doesn't look timeless in that kind of way. So if they had tried, because obviously there was old time fans who lamented how different things look in this compared to TOS time frame. But while it might have made a fair amount of old fans happy if this looked exactly like 1960s TOS, I don't see how you would expect this show to catch on with broader audiences. So I think it's fair that it doesn't look identical to TOS. But my real question was, we understand there's going to be changes for technology and modern times. That aside, do you think the costumes, the uniforms, and the sets of the respective bridges, did they harken back to the originals enough? Or were any of these elements, did they take too much liberties with making it different? That's really actually my question.
I don't think I can answer that, but what I will give you an answer.
Well, it's an opinion question.
Oh, okay. Opinion? Got it. Okay. So I felt like Noriko from the first episode of Gunbuster in how she was overwhelmed with all the sensory overload of all the switches and gears and everything she had to do when she was piloting the mech. And so what she did to win the episode over was she turned everything off and just went by like pure skill and instinct alone. And that's how she won. And so when I first got like into the bridge of the Enterprise before the time skip, or at least the alternate timeline, I wanted to just close my eyes. I know that I think Discovery, had a got lambasted for being too dark or whatever, like darkly
You mean
lit.
literally lighting darkness?
Lighting dark, yes. And then obviously Abrams and early Kelvin got lambasted for being too bright.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to shut my eyes, and I almost said, flip this, I don't care. Well, okay, this is my bias showing and me being unfair to this show. I really don't want to do this episode personally. I'm fine with it, whatever now. But I want to just close my eyes and listen to the episode as if this were an audiobook, because the visuals do not matter to me. There is no cinematic language here. There probably is. I'm sorry, because I would have not realized that. They don't say anything about it. It's just a look. So maybe that's fine. Maybe that changes okay when they showed the bride and groom to be, their fates. That was not brought up. It was that was I guess a reference.
Wait, what do you mean? What wasn't brought up?
Because I don't know. I felt listen, I felt more impact in TOS with those two than I did in this one. But it was obviously not their story. It was obviously an illusion and or not illusion, but illusion and a call
Right,
out.
right. Yes, I think by design it feels more important in the TOS episode by design.
So I'm not saying it was like a check, like, something to mark off the checklist of like, okay, we got to make sure we get those two involved again, or at least a shout out. So I don't know, maybe like just for the fact that it wasn't brought up, but they still were
Did
like,
you,
okay.
aesthetic aside, did you notice the difference with their particular storyline in the TOS versus the Strange New Worlds? Aesthetics aside,
I think she died, he lived.
in which?
In Strange New Worlds, the bride dies and the groom lives. In TOS, it's the opposite.
Correct. Yes, I had my brain had fun noting that difference the first time and the last time I watched this episode.
Both were still wearing yellow, though. I know that for a fact.
The thing I noticed with the set for wherever they were having the ceremony in the Strange New Worlds episode, I realized, and I guess this one came first technically, but it's a redress of a different set that I guess we see in season 2 of Strange New Worlds. Um, because when I was watching it today and I saw where they were getting married, my first thought, because I've watched all the Strange New Worlds up to now, was why are they getting married in the engine room? Like that was my first thought. Like, what is happening? Like, why are they here? But then I realized they're not actually in the engine room. I think it's a redress of what we will see as the engine room in season 2. And something they use a lot in this show and many other Disney and other shows is they use the volume technology, as it's called by ILM.
But like freaking Unity, I believe, had either Unity or Ubisoft, excuse me, had a hand in making it as well.
Yeah, so the scene with the ceremony, the center part, the part that you can physically touch of the set is largely repurposed for the engine room later. But the volume behind it, that's completely different. But it's kind of the same set in the centerpiece. So that was just a weird thing for me to notice because I didn't realize that before. And so, what did you think about the look of the Romulan bridge in particular in the TOS versus the Strange New Worlds? Was the Strange New Worlds version, did it pay enough homage to the original, or did they go way off the path of the original look and design of it?
Made it more menacing. I'll say that. Forgive me. I think it's the Krill, if I recall. It reminded me of the Krill ship from wow, I've already forgotten the name of it, but Seth MacFarlane's thing.
Oh, you've watched that?
Yeah, no, I've watched season 1 and 2.
Oh, nice. I don't know that I knew that.
I've told you this before, but the Orville. There we go. Sorry, the Orville. Yeah, no, it reminded me of the Krill's headquarters, but inside one of their ships.
Now, the Krill, for anyone who's not ever seen it, would you say they were sort of like the Klingon stand-ins?
They were analogous to anything in the show in Star Trek. I mean, so they could be Klingons, they could be Romulans, they could be.
But I feel like they're mostly Klingons, especially because I can't remember. I can't remember the character's name in the Orville, but he's very reminiscent of Worf on TNG, like his character, his personality.
Yes. Flipping, it's been a while.
Obviously, they're not actual Klingons in any way, but they really. If I chose a Star Trek race to liken them to, that's the most familiar to me.
He's a stand-in. The Krill in this case, they're their own thing, which is fine. They're space vampires.
Yeah.
Minus the blood sucking, but just the whole like aversion to UV light.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I guess let's kind of focus just on the TOS episode more.
Okay, good. Sorry. Let's go. This is not fair to the audience. I'm sorry.
You vaguely remembered it before, or to some degree remembered it from 10 years ago. So it's fair to say is this one of your favorite TOS episodes that you have seen?
I won't say favorite, but I'm definitely going to say high praise.
I'm not saying the favorite, but it
No.
in the upper grouping.
I don't know. I don't have that. It's just what this is not fair because if I had watched this first, I think I still would have enjoyed it just as much. versus when I had to compare and contrast to the remake of it. And I mean that generously. Not even generously. I mean that positively. Like, I know they did this intentionally in Strange New Worlds of it as a remake, but that's intentional. This is just great. Okay. First off, great moments in TOS. Okay, sorry, same score, same pieces of music at we all know it. I don't care.
Are you talking about like the reusing of music in TOS? Yeah, okay.
It is the same. I don't care. They knew when to use it and they knew when to not use it. Hey, score, shut up. In Strange New Worlds, that
Oh,
was I could
wow.
not stand the score in Strange New Worlds.
I got
I'm
some more things
sorry.
to say about the Strange New World score after we get.
No. Before, no. Keep going. No, you go, because I don't want to
Well,
backtrack.
there's two things I want to bring up based on what we were just talking about and what we're talking about now. So, another thing you wouldn't necessarily know if this is your first episode of Strange New Worlds is there's two other things that are unique in this episode, which are not that way in the other episodes of Strange New Worlds, which is number one, in this episode, they go out of their way in Strange New Worlds to mimic the lighting and the close ups on characters speaking to mimic the 1960s. They do not do that type of lighting and those types of close ups in regular episodes. So to see them bust that out in this episode was one of the coolest things I loved about it. And if it was for me only and not for the public at large, I wish the whole entire Strange New World series was shot in this way. I think it is so retro cool. But sadly, it's just in this episode. Number two, the score as well, like with the lighting choices, they went out of their way in this episode to reuse music from TOS that we recognize, where they don't nearly do it like that in standard episodes. So obviously you didn't know that. Is that surprising to you, or does that just make
It
sense?
is surprising you telling me this like after the fact. I know it makes me look like an incredible jerk, anyways. But I mean, point of no return was the second you hit play on this podcast of me, now being damning myself to hell. But why not? It's the place I'm going for because man, I was enjoying the TOS episode more than this one. But to be fair, yeah, okay. So obviously, I didn't know any of that going
Yes.
into the Strange New Worlds episode of again. I didn't know what the format was. I didn't know what it was looking like. I just assumed the score in Strange New Worlds was very generic science fiction fanfare, where I was like, okay, they may have like some orchestral notes here or there that is of TOS, but I couldn't really hear anything. Everything in TOS just sounded so distinct. I'm sorry, this is.
Oh, it's funny because to me, for Strange New Worlds, if you're just watching that show, I was just like, whoa, they're going heavy TOS homage score in this one episode. Because usually it has its own unique flavor, just like Voyager has its own unique flavor of its score, and DS9 has its own unique flavor. It's definitely TOS inspired, but it's more unique in a regular episode.
Oh, and there was this like one shot where Pike's in the chair in the alternate timeline, and I could have sworn they gave it was a CGI replacement, or at least there was something
Whoa.
going on with this. It was where they kind of almost did like a 180, like they did a shot where like the camera pans like around him 180, and I was like,
Was it in the bridge?
it might have been on the bridge, I believe so, and it just I don't know, like times like okay, slow motion part at the very end aside, I was just like, what was that about? Caleb would basically be here and say like, rubber man, rubber face, rubber man, because like anything.
I would like you to give me that time code later so I could see that because I
I
definitely
don't
didn't
know
notice
how
anything
to.
like that. But there was something that stood out to me with the lighting in the Strange New Worlds episode. I mean, unintentionally stood out to me, which was there was this one scene where maybe Kirk was standing by his chair or sitting, I don't remember, but he's by his chair. he says his lines, and then he gets up and moves over like towards where Uhura is or something like that. And when he was in his chair space, they had the lighting set up, so it was like very shadowy, but the light illuminated like his eye line. And then when he got up and went over to Uhura or whatever it was, it because of the lighting was set up to highlight his eyes in the chair. When he got up and transitioned, it made it so now that the light is on his body and he's moving, I felt like I could see the light set up that was, focused on him being on the chair. And so when he gets up, it's obviously not focused the proper way. So it kind of broke the immersion a little bit. You know what I mean? Because it was like the lights were literally set up for him to be in that chair position. And so it looks odd when he steps out of it. It'd be like, not exactly the same, but like if you're watching a live performance and they have the spotlight on the character who's singing or monologuing in the center. And then if they just walked off to another part of the stage, but the spotlight didn't follow them, it wasn't exactly the same, but it was something like that. And that was a weird choice that just kind of jumped up at one point. But anyway, not important.
Okay, so quick question as well. Sorry, Doctor in Strange New Worlds. Is that the guy at the end of Doom Part 1, 2021?
Yes,
Okay, I knew it.
yes. And
Okay.
he did Dune Part 1 before he did this. I didn't recognize him initially when I started watching Strange New Worlds. I realized later, oh my gosh, he's Jameis at the end of the Villeneuve movie.
Jameis, thank you. That's what I was like. What? His name started with a
Yes.
J. I can't remember off the tip of my tongue.
Oh my god, he is an actor who has completely grown on me with this show. I mean, just as an actor in general, not necessarily being the Doctor. I freaking think he's so cool. I believe he's Nigerian, but I can't remember if he's Nigerian American or Nigerian British. But I think he's such an amazing actor. And the reason why he was cast for the Dune role is because he has a background in mixed martial arts, or at least martial arts.
Oh, cool.
And so, that led into
He's
his
perked up
casting
right now.
for that, fight scene, duel, whatever you want to call it.
It was a great fight scene. By the way.
But because the actor has that in his background in real life, they use it at times for his characters in Strange New Worlds, and I think it's really fun.
Oh, that actually is an interesting idea. A doctor who takes the oath. I assume they'll go with that angle of he's taking the oath, so it's like, will he use his martial arts or not?
Yeah, and part of the backstory for the characters in the Strange New World show, him and the female who's the pilot, the one who's very cantankerous in this episode.
Short hair or long hair?
Short hair.
Helps in this case for hair length.
Yes. Correct. It's just everyone else who watches the show knows very well who the pilot is, but understood this is your first episode with this crew, especially the ones who are non-legacy characters.
Well, there's two of them right there. So, yeah, one has long hair, the other has short hair.
No, you're right, which applies for someone just watching the show for the first time. But anyone who's watched the show regularly would never be confused about who the pilot is. But anyway, so their character backstories in the show is that you hear them mention how, the Federation prior had been in a long extended war with Romulans, etc. Well, actually, okay, forget that. That is true, and that is definitely a thing in the Enterprise series. But scratch that. As established in the Discovery series, which predated this one, I mean, not just in airing, but in timeline by a bit, the backstory of those two characters in particular, Doctor and the pilot, is they were both war veterans who saw a lot of the war between the Klingons and the Federation. So when you watch multiple episodes, you definitely get the feel that they saw like the most front and center combat action of everyone else on the crew in that previous war. And as you would expect, they carry, the PTSD, etc., of that prior thing. So because their characters saw so much combat, then it kind of also makes sense that the Doctor has like these extra hand-to-hand combat skills.
No, it's cool that they brought that into the character.
Yeah, and you reminded me of something else. You know how with Nolan movies, especially Dark Knight Rises, but there's other examples, how there's that whole argument of I can't understand what they're saying, and it's like, well, it's for artistic reasons the sound mix. You know what I'm talking about.
For the score or for how people talk?
For Nolan movies, especially Dark Knight Rises, but the same thing happens in
Tenet.
And I can't think of the name of the D-Day movie.
Oh, Dunkirk.
Especially those three Nolan movies. There's a lot of the movie where the sound effects, the score are so overbearing that you can't tell what characters and actors are saying. You've heard this argument, right?
Oh yeah, no, plenty of people have it.
Or complaint. So there's a similar complaint with the Doctor character / actor in particular, because he has an accent, right? The character has an accent. And I always see comments from many episodes where people are like, hey, I love the Doctor, but please, I don't know what he's saying. Like it sounds mumbly or something. And I always like the character right out the gate with this show. So I would just be like, oh, I guess. I can understand him well enough, but a lot of people complain, I don't know what he's saying. So then the first time I saw him do an interview, a press interview, press circuit, maybe that's what they call it, the press circuit. Anyway, he was doing a press interview and I saw him do the press interview and I was like, oh my God, that is not his natural voice. I mean, in the show, he has an accent in real life, but he is much easier to understand in real life. So I guess it was an artistic choice to make him sound difficult to understand when he's playing the character. So that's just a weird thing. Like I don't know what else to say about that. I don't know if that enhances the character. I don't know. But because people are like, why do we have this actor who to our ears has like a speech impediment? That is not how he speaks in real life. It is part of the character.
I'm on a roll with polls that probably would have never been brought up on this podcast channel. I don't know why, but I always think back to in Chappie, I guess the criminal leader, the South African criminal leader, where they have to dub his voice because you can't really understand him because he's got a real thick like African accent or South African accent, excuse me. So I don't know why I think of that for some reason.
Yeah. Oh, no, I see what you're saying. I can't remember that character in particular, but I know especially what you're talking about with that South African accent in general. And I don't know if you're talking about like, because, well, yeah, there's multiple accents in South Africa. There's like the more urban one, but then there's the more, is it Danish?
Well, yeah, like I know Dracus du Plessis, he obviously sounds different than the two rapper protagonists in Chappie. And then same with what's his name? I blanking on his name, but also, in all of Blomkamp's trilogy. And I've never actually heard Blomkamp speak, which is kind of a shame.
I don't think, or if I have, I don't remember.
And then the sophisticated Elon Musk accent, I suppose.
Right, that's a funky one too, in of itself. But anyway, let's try to focus more on TOS again.
Focus? What do you mean by focus?
Because we can't help but bleed into Strange New Worlds, it seems.
This is the case. One thing that I definitely liked right off the bat was the tone that TOS set with its episode.
How would you describe that tone?
So we start off very, I say innocent, but very like, oh, we're in a chapel. And it's something that I think people would assume, especially since it's very like co-ed on the ship. But it is nice to see that it would like, two people wish to be wedded together in holy matrimony, or at least by the captain's matrimony, of course. And then obviously everything, well, there's an underlying threat, of course, immediately with like we're near the neutral zone. What the flip does that mean? I'm taking your advice, Eric. go back to 63 or 66, excuse me, and put yourself in somebody else's shoes watching this for the first time, not knowing anything about the future, such as alternate timelines from a crystallized crystallized TARDIS. Immediately, once all hands on deck and we have to cancel the wedding, postpone the wedding, put it on ice, potentially crystallize it. They immediately give us exposition, which some people might think as, nope, this is, you don't need it, from what Mr. Spock gives us about the entire war. It is a haunting message to me of neither of us, neither side, the Romulans nor the Federation, ever even saw direct eyesight or contact of what the other side looked like. Okay, suddenly, once again, deep pull. Suddenly, this has all become this all of a sudden has become cannon fodder for memories. What in tarnation? I never thought I'd be seeing that today. And they used rudimentary nuclear armaments potentially, and it's like, that's nuts. And in 66, that's definitely hitting a lot of people. In that.
I see. I'm glad you brought this up because it reminded me of something else I just learned about people in 1966 watching this episode in particular. So I just saw a few interesting videos on YouTube recently on the subject of Star Trek. And it's because something else happened in a new episode of Strange New Worlds, like recently released episode of Strange New Worlds. Whereas, I'll just say, minor spoiler, there is a scene that happens in one of the newer episodes, not this one that we watched. Well, this is season 1, but in season 3, there's this episode where Pike says some things in character that come across as very Catholic or religious or Christian. And there's been fans, especially longtime fans, who went, "Whoa, what's going on?" Because it's commonly said that Star Trek, since its inception, has been largely devoid of any mutual or coherent religion, like from our present day, in their time.
Say for other cultures, religions.
Oh yeah, we're not talking about other cultures. We're talking about humans or Terrans in the Federation, especially. That yes, people may practice religion, but it's never brought to the forefront with the humans or Terrans, especially. And for decades, Star Trek has largely been considered a world that is like post-religion. You know what I mean? Or post-Earth religions of modern times, our times. And so, as an example of, whoa, wait a minute, there was definitely some religion or religious aspects. This episode is cited as one of those. Like, did you forget, the marriage ceremony in this particular episode? And here's the deal, more backstory to all this. So Gene Roddenberry was, I don't know if devout's the right word, but he was very atheist. And he very much, with this show in the 60s and his vision of Star Trek and the Federation, etc., he was very much against showing any type of modern day religion in their time, for the humans especially. And he definitely wouldn't have wanted that scene to be in this episode. But this is the other thing I learned about 60s television. Regardless of what Gene Roddenberry wanted to do, it was just expected in generally all network television in the 60s and prior. It was expected that you just have to have some religious references to Christianity or whatever. It was just expected of all shows because in the 60s, I have learned, that's what the audience expected and wanted to be there. So interesting to me that, if it was just up to Gene Roddenberry, we probably would not have gotten a religious union like that, marriage. And then going back to Pike and Strange New Worlds and people being upset, oh my gosh, why are they suddenly injecting modern day religions into Star Trek? The thing people forget about that, though, is that it was already established in canon with Pike and TOS that part of his backstory was he was the son of a priest or a preacher. So it wouldn't be far-fetched for Pike to have some religious beliefs. So anyway, I'm just glad you brought that up because I wanted to bring that up.
I assume it was like non-denominational. I believe, at least over in our airport, I believe there's like a non-denominational chapel that you can go to and like, seek rest or refuge to either meditate or do such tranquil activities. I don't know if all of the airports have that, but I assume that it was just. I mean, again, I don't know this, but I don't know if in the Navy it just depending on how high ranking, which ranking officers are allowed to wed people on there.
Oh, it's known. It's known in fiction and media in general, not necessarily sci-fi, but stuff that happens like period piece novels and movies that exist in our world. It is commonly known that it's been the rules of the sea for a very long time in Western culture that a captain of any vessel can preside over a legal marriage on sea. So they're taking the real world tradition or law and transposing it into Star Trek.
Or else this would have made the ending bit of Pirates of the Caribbean 3 at World's End awkward if Barbossa hadn't married Jack and Elizabeth. Jack and Elizabeth, sorry.
Right.
No, Will, pardon me, Will and Elizabeth.
Right. So that's definitely where the TOS episode is taking that concept from, is that it's known that the captain of a ship has the authority to marry two peoples.
Here you go, ladies and gentlemen, those between an affiliate. I'll give you two negatives, or at least two things that I wasn't a big fan of about the TOS episode. I wish we did less of outside shots, and that's a big thing that I didn't like about. It's
Wait,
whatever.
When you say
fine.
outside shots, you mean outside of the ship?
Yep, I wish we had less outside of the ship shots. Not because it's rudimentary CGI when they updated the whole the old when they special editioned those effects, but I almost kind of want it to be like they're because. Especially this one when the red alert's going on and people are like at their stations, especially when they were initially launching the torpedoes or the phasers, excuse me, the first time around, and they didn't go back to that, which is fine. It felt like I was actually in like a submarine, and I kind of like that because.
Wait, I thought you were saying negatives.
Oh yeah, no. So here, what I'm saying was, had they not shown me outside shots, I would have preferred that to not be the case.
Oh, okay.
Because I actually like the isolation, and what it was doing was it was this episode was creating a lot of like either fear or building tension for me, because you have these two, especially with like the Romulans instead of the bird of prey, where they too are also like just all we see is like the inside of their ship. Sometimes, obviously, we do get I think some shots of now. Having the ships on the display, that's fine. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking camera is outside and you clearly see the Enterprise firing. I didn't think we needed that. I actually preferred if we wouldn't have that, and it builds more suspense of like you can show it on the screen. Literally, like you can show it on from the bridge's perspective, them firing the torpedoes or the phasers, excuse me, at the enemy ship.
Of course, we're watching the remastered version. Or I'm assuming that's what you watched for the TOS episode. So, it's interesting because in general, if you compare the original cuts of TOS episodes versus the remasters, even though the episodes are the same essentially, because they have the ability to use CGI to do like ship battles and things like that to recreate them, and because the original series didn't have access to so much special effects budget that they could create so much with unique models and other things, so they had much less outer space footage to use in the original cuts. Because of that, if we were just watching original cuts, a lot of TOS episodes would feel more like what you just described,
Oh, yes.
meaning you wouldn't see nearly as many shots because they only had like one model shot of like the Romulan bird of prey approaching. Therefore, because that was like their only one of their few good model shots created for the episode, they use it modestly, so you only maybe see it like 2 or 3 times. Versus we have CG models, so we can just keep showing them, multiple times from different angles. So, and that's not just this episode; that's like all the TOS episodes in general.
Oh yeah, I know. This is not just that, but that's one pervasive thing that happens throughout like the remasters or like special
Yeah,
editions.
so so regular original cut TOS episodes feel more constrained to being on the bridge and not really seeing everything like you're a ethereal omnipresent observer.
Yep.
There's more theater of the mind.
That's exactly what I prefer.
And classic Doctor Who's like that too. I mean, especially in the like 60s, because they had the same constraints. We can't do like a million outlandish effects model shots, so a lot of that has to be theater of the mind as
Yep.
well.
Nope, theater of the mind, sometimes better than what is on screen. So I mean, that's obviously maybe not like a negative, like it is a detraction that I will give the entirety of the way I am watching TOS now. So I have to go out and find the originals if they exist somewhere.
They do if you
non-special
buy
editions.
like the DVDs or something,
I suppose
the
you're
Blu-rays.
right.
Yeah, you get both versions.
If there's an option to turn it off, I will always watch the non-special edition.
Yeah, there's an option to turn it off, and depending on the functionality of your Blu-ray or DVD player, you can switch like at any time you want.
Excellent. Anyways, but I guess for the episode itself, I wish that at the end, listen, I had some dust in my eye. I actually really because the episode does at least, you can call it maybe, oh, this is like outdated for its time. I don't care. When we saw both ensigns, are they ensigns or whatever rank they are? But when we saw the yellow shirts,
One's an ensign for sure. The other one has a higher rank. The male has a higher rank.
oh, that's true. He's her superior. I maybe it wasn't the greatest style. Just the fact that we saw them and they interacted. Maybe it wasn't the best. It was just short enough that by the end, when she's in the chapel again, I started to get some dust in my eyes. I started to tear up a bit. I was like, oh, this is hitting me in the feels there. And there's like no music. And then they just keep it quiet. And then what I didn't like was after Kirk leaves the room, which is fine, the music, like that fanfare comes back, and I'm like, oh, you didn't need to do that. You didn't need to do that. Just let the episode play out quiet. I know obviously we couldn't do that for the the ending credits, but could you at least have just like held off for like a few seconds without that? And that's my only negative, or that's my negative of the episode.
Those type of quiet moments at the end of an episode, that was very common in like the 60s, 70s, 80s television. Very common technique. And you reminded me of something else that has been used here and there in older shows and in modern shows. Like there's a very notable episode of classic Doctor Who where something sad happens at the end of the episode, and it's like the only episode of classic Doctor Who where when they roll credits, it's completely silent.
Oh yes.
So yeah, they did that there. And there's there's maybe 1 or 2 episodes of Game of Thrones that do the exact same thing. And it's very eerie, to get to those episodes and just get no score.
Oh, that's good. No, that's a thumbs up for me. Because and this is where you don't need it every episode, but when there's a lack of music, it hits, it shows. And I felt like the music in this really helped accentuate the dread, and or at least the tension that was building. Again, it's always used. It's stock TOS sounds even this early on, but I don't know, just in comparison to from old to new, this isn't even fair at all. But I was definitely like more enjoying those moments of they know when to bring that like ostentatious score in every now and then, and
Yeah.
know when to build tension though when like to cut it out.
I think you and I are a bit similar in some respect with some of the things you've been saying about the score in the TOS episode in regards to Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who, because in 60s Doctor Who, which of course you and I have recently started discussing on Mostly Harmless Cutaway podcast.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. You know, I don't think we've discussed this yet over there, and you've only seen 2 full stories at this point. But as you continue to watch more 60s black and white Doctor Who, you will start to notice that when it comes to score, there's bits and pieces that are kind of like TOS, where, oh, I've heard this song before. They're reusing the stock audio or stock score that you mentioned. And when people talk about Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who, or you watch the documentaries, they always talk about, like, I don't know what year it is. I don't know if it's 69 or what it is, but they go, oh, now we actually have unique composers composing unique scores just for that particular story, and then somebody else for this story. And people always talk down about using stock audio, but when it comes to Doctor Who, I actually like the older episodes that use the stock audio. I actually think it's cool. Like, to me, it sort of gets less interesting with the unique scores. Not because they're bad, and you go, but you get a unique score for every episode. Isn't that great? Yeah, but some of them are great on their own, but some of them to me are so forgettable. The unique ones, in classic Doctor Who. So when I rehear like motifs that I recognize because it's stock audio, I actually like that. I'm like, wait, I think I'm in the minority in that.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you on that one. Especially, yeah, it's you could say it's cheap, but I mean, if Seinfeld had a new like bass chord every episode, how would that sound? It's all about recognizability or just playing to the. I don't know. Either way. Okay, so lighting in TOS. Again, this by this point it's just comparisons. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
There's something about the light tangibly being there, whereas I felt like all the lights in Strange New Worlds were artificial and muted and not there. There were some shadows that I was like, okay, I can maybe see some stuff there and lights in that.
I see what you're saying, but if I was being weirdly critical on the TOS episode,
of course,
I would say it's definitely there, but it seems more artificial in the like it's more theatrical, say.
Oh, and that's what I love. It was so, like, you could say it's so obvious and over the top. I love it. I don't care. The shadows, the use of, I love it. It's great. It's maybe call it classic, maybe call it antiquated. I don't care. I love that stuff.
Yeah, I also love it. I love it completely. I love that the Romulan scenes have that kind of fuchsia color.
Yes, I love the contrast. It's so like, the bridge in the Enterprise looks lit up, and there's machines everywhere, and then over in the Romulans it's like purple and like, weird and different for that reason.
Yeah, and I think now in our modern age where you can, easily purchase LED lights that you can change the color on the fly, I wonder if that's why I often like to go with the fuchsia tone in my own room or in my own place. I wonder if it's because I really like it in these TOS episodes, that particular shade.
Eric is secretly a Romulan spy.
Hey, beware of Romulans bearing gifts. Well,
credits.
And as I said earlier, even though you're right, the Strange New Worlds equivalent looks a lot flatter with contrast of shadows, etc. Like I said, though, in that particular episode, though, they're deliberately trying to put more to make it reminiscent of the 60s shooting style versus a normal, quote unquote, episode of Strange New Worlds.
Well, if I can be level-headed for once after all my shouting earlier, um, I unfortunately, yeah, I did not notice that, and that's, I guess,
Yeah.
the wrong episode to be introduced by,
I
because
like to think if you watch any other Strange New Worlds episode, then you will suddenly notice,
yeah,
oh wow.
it's definitely not fair that I'm like lambasting that episode of Strange
No,
New
it's
Worlds
fair.
that
It's
way,
fair
but
because you've only seen that one
it's,
episode.
yeah, it literally is the only one I thought like I've seen, and I was kind of like mixed and or like underwhelmed.
Yeah. And yeah, in Discovery, especially in the early seasons, it just feels overly dark for sure. like it's like, where are the lights?
I don't know. This is our Man of Steel era, so we like everything to be muted and
Right.
or dark as all heck.
Oh, yes, they were definitely going not for an exact Snyder style, but it's definitely in that vein of lighting. Is early Discovery in particular.
Oh, and I did notice. I don't know if this is a case. Sorry for interrupting you. I don't know if this is the case in Strange New Worlds, but I did notice that the slight sound effect from the TOS era of doors opening. I did
Mm-hmm.
notice that in Strange New Worlds. I don't know if that's like from just this episode only, or if it's in the whole
No, that's
series.
all. That's consistent. That's always.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, another thing, another sound effect that you would notice a lot if you watch Strange New Worlds regularly, and you hear it in this episode also. Just that I don't know what you call it, but the background sound for just being on the bridge, that like diddling, 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 diddling. That's a poor reproduction. You know what I'm talking about? The little beep in the background in TOS.
Well, yes, yeah, in TOS, yes, but in Strange Worlds, I don't know.
Yes. So you hear that. You hear that in all normal episodes of Strange New Worlds as well. It's not as loud in the mix as it is in TOS, but it's definitely there. That bling 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 bling. And when they first released TOS on DVD format ever, and it's crazy because they released 2 episodes on one DVD, and then you had to wait till next month till like episode 1 and 2 came out. Then episode 3 and 4 came out for
Jeez,
sale,
nickel and diming you, man.
and they were $20 each.
Oh,
So that's like
freaking
$10 per
OVA.
episode.
Yeah. Oh boy.
And I bought like the first 3 releases or whatever, like the first 6 episodes. Um, and I loved it. Like the first time I popped in disc 1, the first release, and it just goes to the title screen. I mean, not the title screen, the menu screen, and it shows you a chapter selection or whatever, and it would show like a first person perspective CG generated, like as if you were sitting in the captain's chair looking at the view screen, so you see the console in front of you, and the audio playing on the DVD menu was just like that stock sound of so you just heard that sound effect from TOS without any score or anything like that. So I used to love just playing the menu screen and leaving it on and just hearing the sound effect of being on the bridge.
Another sound effect that I did not encounter before, or at least I haven't heard before, it's probably in there, like in other episodes that I've seen. But I was like, wait a second, that's where Ben Burt got it from. In Star Wars 77, when we have the lightsaber duel between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. Obviously the lightsabers make certain sound effects, but there's one where every time the lightsabers lock or clash, when both opponents press against each other, like pushing into each other, there's a sound effect that's in this TOS episode. Whenever I think like machinery is malfunctioning, or at least electronics are exposed, or vents are open or something like that, I was like,
I think I kind of know what effect you're talking about.
no way this was like a stock effect that Ben Burt wasn't creating with his own sound library. That's interesting.
Right, right. And speaking of sound libraries, because so this was obviously a when it originally aired, it was an NBC/Desilu production,
Yes.
and so you had
Wait, NBC or CBS?
it was an NBC
Okay.
originally, yeah. It became CBS later in modern times, but anyway, or in the '90s. Um, 80s. Sorry. Um, so if something was on NBC network, then they use basically the NBC sound library for like all their shows, and then ABC and CBS respectively. So if you ever find the pilot episode of Hawaii Five O, which came out I think in '69, and it was on NBC. If you can find it streaming on Hulu or Pluto or something, watch that first episode of Hawaii Five O, which I don't know if you know the premise, but it's sort of like these whatever the group is called in Mission Impossible, except they're just working on the Hawaiian Islands.
Impossible Missions Force.
Yeah, so it's a little bit like that genre, like the original series of Mission Impossible. It's that genre, but it's set in Hawaii. And if you watch the pilot, like I did on Hulu like 10 years ago, you will immediately notice that they're using all the TOS sound bank and stock audio score. It's it's crazy because all the sound effects and musical stings are like the same as TOS. So check that out if you could.
Yeah, it's in contemporary times at the time as well.
If you can find that somewhere, it's a trip because you're like, am I watching Hawaii Five O or am I watching Star Trek? Like, what is happening right now?
Actually, I'll retract my statement a bit, or at least back up a bit, and maybe cover my bases and say I don't know if that sound effect I was talking about, where it sounds like lightsabers locking in Star Wars 77. I could be wrong. Maybe they added that afterwards in like the remasters or the special editions. I don't know.
I don't know how much they ever did of like adding sounds for the special editions, but I know they did some, and I think it was still, you said his name, consulting and doing it for the special editions.
In Star Wars, yes. I don't know about Star Trek.
Yeah, I'm talking about Star Wars. Oh no, I don't know about Star Trek. Oh, something you brought up a while back, but I really wanted to like double down on it. You mentioned how you had this feeling of like a submarine battle.
Yes, because
did you already know that Balance of Terror was already famous since the beginning of evoking that sense of being a submarine battle?
I don't think I did. I think I just used I just like used my brain and just said, oh, maybe this is like, how submarines are, because you can't fucking see anything down there.
Or have you seen many submarine movies?
I haven't seen Das Boot. No, go on.
Yeah, so Das Boot is like the most famous, which I actually have also not seen. I think it came out like in 81 or so.
Yeah, it comes after TOS.
Yeah. But this episode has always been famously known for evoking that sense of submarine warfare. And I think it's safe to say they tapped into the vibe of this episode when they created Wrath of Khan, which was also inspired by Das Boot that just like came out a year before. But
that's funny.
This episode in particular feels very proto Wrath of Khan duel. And I guess I agree. Perhaps that one works better for you in the original film, not Into Darkness. But because you were talking about how you'd prefer to add to the vibe it being more obscure. And I guess that's the purpose of having the Mantara Nebula in Wrath of Khan, because they have very little visibility of where the other ship is.
Yes.
But yeah, I generally love those kind of episodes. And we got an episode in season 2 of Strange New Worlds that has nothing to do with Romulans or Khan, but is a Strange New Worlds submarine episode, so to speak. And that's another one that I and many people really enjoy from season 2.
I think that the why I would like less visuals on the outside of the ship is because I think you can really do a good thriller. Like, I think there's a lot of, like, it'd be a good action. Well, I say action, but there's definitely a thriller part to 60s television that I always gauge. And I do mean 60s, not just TOS, but like a lot of other 60s episodes.
Yes. Are you tapping into our recent discussion on classic Doctor Who
I might be, perhaps.
with the second story? Because I was going to say earlier, before you even brought this up, when you were talking about the submarine aspect originally, when you said like sort of less is more, I was going to say yes, of course, and that was a heavy technique in classic Doctor Who in general. Was we don't have the budget and stage space to show a lot, so we're intentionally going to show little, and that in turn adds a lot of suspense to actually a set that's not very large.
Can I just give my critique of Stranger New Worlds?
Yeah, of
You
course.
just said it. Less is more. Most Paramount Plus shows, at least from going forward, less is more. Like, even though you can say, okay, but in TOS's day, this was a lot more. You're right. You are right, listener.
I agree with you. But not in the way you're saying it about Strange New Worlds. Because in Strange New Worlds in particular, especially of Star Trek Paramount Plus shows, I actually generally love what they're able to do with their cinematography and their effects outside of the ships or inside the ships or whatever. I generally think it's incredible, like how far quote unquote television, small screen has come. That being said, where I agree with you conceptually is that compared to, let's say, Star Trek Discovery, the structure and design of the Strange New Worlds episodes versus Discovery is, to me, Discovery's trying to do too much with their stories and scripts on an episode by episode basis. From my perspective, Strange New Worlds does a lot or attempts to do a lot less, which ends up being more for me. So if I'm comparing Strange New Worlds to Discovery, Strange New Worlds from a storyboarding point of view is less is more, because Discovery is just bananas. I mean, with screenplay, with story, with tone, with everything, it's doing too much. But of course, you haven't really seen that to compare.
I haven't, and can't. I shouldn't pass judgment on it, even though what you're telling me is really. I don't want to, watch that on my own terms. But
Most
before
people don't want to watch that.
there you go. Before I keep comparing these two episodes to each other, which is not what I think the listeners are here for. I will at least try to analyze. Hopefully, I can analyze part of TOS the episode and say what a great back and forth between captains. Like what a great chess match we had here on display between Kirk and the Romulan. Just there was a point where when we went to the Romulan side, oh boy, I actually started to feel for the guy. I actually liked his performance a lot. I was like, oh, I kind of don't want to see both of them fight each other.
And that's Mark Leonard, the actor, of course,
Yep,
playing the Romulan.
yep. And I was then like, oh, this guy, oh, wow, he's making it's a little okay. It's not full on what we were watching the other night with Doctor Who, but it's evoking that kind of stuff. And there's a bit of Shakespearean in there, and the way
Mm-hmm.
the camera was aimed as well, or the way they positioned the camera as well, was making me like, oh, I like this. The way they are doing the cameras.
Yeah, and again, we see an '80s version of that in Wrath of Khan, and adding some Shakespearean type language, and we see it again in Star Trek Six with the character, I can't remember the Klingon's name, but played by Christopher Plummer, and he's full on quoting Shakespeare like nonstop.
Nice.
Oh, have you not seen Star Trek Six?
I've only seen motion picture and Wrath of Khan.
Oh my gosh, that's the next best one when it comes to original crew.
The only two good ones, in my opinion.
Yeah, and well, I like them all, but the three
Yeah,
best
of
are
course.
those two and Star Trek Six. Um, but yeah, and it has that submarine element too, just not as much of it.
Oh, of course.
And a thing that a lot of people criticize season one TNG for is that there's a number of stories in season 1 especially where they're just basically taking scripts from TOS and adapting them to TNG crew. There's multiple episodes like that, and there is a TNG equivalent of Balance of Terror in TNG.
Interesting.
Not with the Romulans, with a different alien species, but it's practically the exact same story, just with a different alien.
I didn't think that we were spinning our wheels at any point in this TOS episode. I feel like everything was deliberate in its time and its pacing. I loved when they both ships were like, all right, we gotta just like power down and wait like 9 hours. And I believed it. I was like, this, yeah, no, I kind of liked how they just stopped.
Yeah.
Because like the tension had grown so much where they were about to like obliterate each other. I was like, no, I buy it. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it does in the story and just in storytelling in general.
And in my mind, I could imagine like if they weren't submarines, but they were instead like they just happen to be like two galleons or something like that. Not galleons, but whatever
Yes.
type of ship in the high seas era.
Yeah.
I could just imagine like both drop an anchor and just everybody either repairing the ship, eating something, and it's all in silence.
Yeah. I know. I think you said it well. You talked about the comparison of the two captains or whatever you want to call them in Balance of Terror, and I agreed with pretty much everything you said about that. But did you have any feeling at all for Pike versus his Romulan commander captain of the other vessel? Because I'll just say, especially the way the arc develops within that episode of Strange New Worlds, I wasn't getting teary eyed or anything, but I thought it had nice emotional impact.
See, and I can almost maybe. Oh, this is not fair. This is not fair at all. I'm sorry. This is not fair. Because in Strange New Worlds, when he gives almost the same speech as his counterpart does in TOS, and he says, "In another timeline, we could have been friends." Okay, this is not Strange New Worlds' fault, but that line is like outdated. Not even outdated. That line has been overused to death, like as of now.
Okay.
And the other thing, I'll even say this for both, unfortunately, but I know why. It's a quick death is Shakespearean death speech.
Yes.
It was said too fast. Like both sides said it way
Oh,
too fast. I think I
interesting.
wish I would have kind of not extended outwards, but like give it some space, man. Like slow it down a bit, eh?
It doesn't happen with me all the time with media, but in the Strange New Worlds, like, ending of the Romulan commander and his speech and everything, I'm not usually the type of viewer who, when the writer director is deliberately trying to manipulate the audience, when it's very blatantly obvious, I don't necessarily respond to that in general. This is one of those rare times where it's abundantly obvious how they're trying to make you feel, and for some reason, I just went with it and didn't question it, even though it's very obvious what they're trying to do to the audience.
I mean, I had that with who am I to judge what you just said? Because I did the same thing with the ending of TOS, where it's the woman in the chapel, and
Yes.
she's just having a moment to herself, and then she hugs Kirk. I'm like, that got to me. Like I said, I got a little dusty eyed. I got some dust in my eye.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody left a bowl of onions beneath me.
And going back to costumes for a second, comparing the new to the old, just because it popped up on my TOS viewing right now. Um, the one thing I really didn't like the first time I watched the Strange New Worlds version in terms of costuming was I was just dying to see one of the Strange New Worlds Romulans Centurions wearing a helmet. I kept waiting for a reveal of a Romulan crewman with a helmet, and we don't ever get it. And that was one of my biggest beefs of adapting the costumes or whatever.
Well, and I don't know what the costume consistency is for believability or at least like good design in these Paramount Plus shows, but I
Mhm.
know a lot of people will make fun of those Romulan designs in the TOS episode, but I dig it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Like they're ready to go play some water polo or wrestle or something.
Or do some rugby or something like that. Throw the old pigskin around
Yeah,
with
yeah.
gridiron.
But I just wanted to see a new interpretation of that. And it really bothered me that no one put something together just to put on one or two extras on the Romulan bridge.
So this comparison is, I think, I say healthy. I don't think so, but I'm trying to is breaking down the characters that all exist similarly, but I think have been remixed or at least played around with, which is
Mm-hmm.
the doubters. Maybe not the doubters, but the ones who have beef and or history with each other.
Right.
So the short-haired pilot in Strange New Worlds, she's got beef with, I guess, the Clint, not the Clint, but she's more gung ho and like let's get them, let's get these Romulans.
Yeah, because again, she's like the war veteran, and she just has a thing about she has xenophobia because of her prior experiences.
To be fair, I think she kind of tapers off a bit later on.
Yes,
The dude, the not the not Sulu dude, or I guess the not Chekhov guy, the
right.
Chekhov replacement of the week. Um, Buddy is ruthless. Like he's like a rabid dog waiting to just like bite and give people rabies.
Yes,
He wants to tear Spock's head off, and he knows he can't. But
his character is such a '60s Star Trek trope character,
oh yeah,
as well as like '60s television in general,
oh yeah,
and going into the '70s in television, where you have these like extremely like cartoonishly bigoted characters. It was a common thing, in film and television, obviously in the '60s and
there'll be no
'70s.
bigotry on my bridge.
Yeah, and it's so over the top. If you're like a younger viewer, meaning you're used to modern media, and you see this, I could see how you could be like, "Why is this acting turning into a cartoon?" Or why is this characterization turning into a cartoon? But even though it is, a relic of its time, I freaking love it. I mean,
I
it's
agree.
so dastardly too, and
It
he's
is.
so over the top, like with his xenophobia or racism, whatever you want to call it. But also, it's also something you probably know, and longtime TOS viewers know. Star Trek TOS, in particular, is known for its progressivism or its radical new age for the real world in the 60s, like, you know, broadening of minds and perspectives.
For the time.
Yeah, of course. And like when they're doing these types of social commentaries in many episodes of TOS, generally, and maybe it's because I grew up with it and I'm not a young viewer, it's just fantastic and feels right for the time that the show came out.
So we have those two on the Enterprise side. It'd been interesting had because I'll give the guy this. Obviously, Toss, not Chekhov. If that had been Chekhov, that would have been actually an interesting backstory for him. And then going forward, he would have probably learned to. I say learned, but he probably would have like become more open to just other cultures potentially, or just other ideas. And that would have been good character development, something that we would have probably not seen, but good character development for like a side character. But I don't know how often this not Chekhov character returns.
Yeah, usually, like it was a trope on the sitcom Murphy Brown that like every episode they always had like a new receptionist admin assistant in their
Oh,
office.
that's awesome.
And at first it would just be random actors you never heard of, like stand-in actors. But then later it could be like a celebrity actor, just doing like a guest spot, and like, oh, who's our receptionist, something like that. Yeah, so like they did in Murphy Brown, and there's been similar roles like that in other shows. Um, Sulu, for the most part, was really the only consistent person sitting at that console in season one. And you would often have, like how you have Red Shirt of the Week, you would often have person sitting next to Sulu of the week. Yeah, that was definitely a thing. And sometimes they're just background characters, or sometimes they were an antagonistic type of person, like this guy was. Um, and also, I don't know if you know, but Chekhov is not introduced until the premiere of season 2.
Yeah, not in the episode where. Well, okay, everyone knows that. I'm not going to say it. Yeah, he's not in Space Seed.
Space Seed, yeah. Which I was thinking about when you mentioned Sam not really being, part of the Enterprise originally, because it makes me think of Sulu, which is just because we didn't see him doesn't mean he wasn't around.
Sulu or Chekhov?
Chekhov or Sam Kirk in TOS.
You said Sulu. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry, but yeah.
And then over on the Romulan side, on both sides, the original series, we have not Chekhov, bigoted guy of the week, with his outlandish personality. We transfer him over to Strange New Worlds, the Romulan ship, his
Yes.
number 2 or whatever, or his sub commander as they call him.
Yes.
That's him.
You are correct. Yeah, you're right. Yes.
By the way, I was expecting a coup. I was literally expecting him to issue a coup over the commander in Strange New Worlds.
Mutiny.
I was
I think they
mutiny.
call it
Sorry.
on a ship.
Sorry, yeah, coup. Pardon me. Yeah, mutiny. I was fully expecting a mutiny to happen, and it did not happen.
Well, it did, but not in the traditional way.
This is true. You're right. I guess I was then thinking the commander, the archdeacon or whatever she's.
Archdeacon.
I'm sorry. I just thought of this. Catholicism in my mind.
I didn't check this to verify it, and I'll just let it be. But I'm not sure if she's supposed to be the one in Strange New Worlds, the female in charge.
Yes.
I'm not sure if she's supposed to be the same one who we will see later in TOS, or if she's a totally different person.
Shrugs.
I don't know. I think maybe she is different because there's definitely an age difference between the characters. Well, because I think, spoiler for the future TOS episode, Kirk being Kirk, he may have a thing for this rock.
It's Kirk. Of course it is. He's next to Zeus for being the one who shags all women.
And if that's supposed to be the same character in Strange New Worlds, I don't think that would. I can't see young Kirk smoozing up to that particular.
Listen here. Hang on a second. In a who can outshag the other between James Bond and James T. Kirk, Zeus wins.
Oh boy. Okay. But and one of the final questions I'll have, and I'll be spent on this discussion, not because I can't talk about it more, but just because it's late at night. But one of my last points I'll bring up, and then you can bring up anything else you want to bring up.
Of course, please. It's your show.
What do you think about, if we're comparing these two stories, and especially how they turn out in the end? What do you think about Kirk's way of managing the situation in the TOS episode, him being the captain of the Enterprise, and then Pike's approach as the type of leader he is and the way he handles it? Because obviously Kirk is the more shoot first, ask questions later, more aggressive.
Which we see in TOS.
Yes. And then Pike is the much more, hold on, let me think about this, let me consider, let me try every avenue of peaceful resolution I possibly can muster before I go further. And we see what ultimately happens depending on who's the captain of the situation. So what do you think about the shoot first, ask questions later strategy or ideology prevailing in this situation versus the this peaceful solution, let's do anything we can, and it ultimately leading to a very long war in this alternate timeline?
Can I temporarily put a pin in that question, which I'm going to forget about?
Go ahead.
What separates Christopher Pike from Jean-Luc Picard? Because if Picard is the ultimate diplomat, is Pike also kind of having those diplomatic tendencies, or is it just with age and or / their rank.
So you're asking me what separates them two, those two characters or leadership styles?
Yeah, like what, and that's not like me trying to be comparing or whatever, but
Well, obviously you haven't seen all the Strange New Worlds, which obviously is where you see a lot more of Pike's character in
okay,
action.
this is true because in the original in TOS, Pike's only in there for what, 2 episodes,
Right, pretty
if we
much.
count the pilot.
Right, of course. And then, of course, we could draw from Kelvin Pike if we wanted to, but that's opening another can of worms.
We're not going to in this case.
But anyway, so from what I've seen of Pike in Strange New Worlds,
Yes, we'll
especially,
use him.
the difference between him and Picard is like if we were choosing like our fantasy Star Trek bridge crews, or if these were part of the Star Trek trading card game, um, I would have to give Jean-Luc Picard much higher stat ratings. He would be the much more the MVP choice for your deck if we were doing trading card game. And I know this doesn't really explain anything. So I think Patrick Stewart, by comparison to Pike, he seems much more experienced in general being a captain. He seems much more sure of himself and his decisions and his reads of situations. Pike, from watching the series, feels like a captain who is a lot more unsure a lot of the time and like always wants to do the best thing but doesn't necessarily know how they can make that happen because he doesn't have the idea coming to his head. Picard, again, he's much more confident in himself where he can make judgment calls like in a split second, whereas Pike just has this sense of uncertainty or like doubt in his captain abilities. Not a lot, but just more than what we're used to seeing in Starfleet captains.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah,
This is not fair at all to the audience. Sorry.
it's okay.
Is with Pike in Strange New Worlds, which I accept going with, is that also because he has this burden of knowing his future?
No, I think that's
Okay.
just who he is as a character. And also, just for you or anyone who's not seen what happened prior in Paramount Plus universe, this actually happened in Discovery because, again, Strange New Worlds is a spinoff of sorts of Discovery. And so the first time we see Kirk and Spock played by these actors, and Una, I think,
Kirk or Pike?
is in is when the Enterprise appears in the Discovery series. We don't see or meet Uhura yet, or the short-haired pilot, or the Doctor, or any of these other people. Oh, of course, Nurse Chapel is in this show as well. We only meet Una, Spock, and Pike, played by the same actors and actress. And something happens in Discovery that causes Pike to see his future demise. And it's unclear, even up to current episodes, it's unclear if they're showing us this is what had always happened in TOS. TOS timeline, we just never saw it on screen that he knew. Or is this a situation like Kelvin timeline, which I think is the more likely solution or answer, which is because the thing that happens in Discovery is kind of like a Nero event, that obviously creates the Kelvin timeline because situations are so altered. It seems like Pike seeing his future is like a Nero event. Like it seems like this is not what happened in the original Prime timeline. Again, that's to be determined officially. That's just the way it seems, though. That that this is a new development in Pike's timeline that didn't happen in the Prime universe. But again, the jury's out. We don't know. We don't have all the facts yet. And so it's kind of confusing if you just jump into Strange New Worlds with episode 1 without seeing Discovery, because we already have this backstory and you're just left wondering, why is this even a thing? Because you don't really know if you just start with
True.
episode 1 of Strange New Worlds. Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. I don't know. I can't imagine what that was like for the people who skipped out on that Discovery storyline and just were watching Strange New Worlds going, what did I miss? Was there a prequel comic that was released? Like, what is happening?
So to, I guess, unpin that question you had asked about a hit and run, whatever, shoot fast and ask questions later or whatever.
Yeah, the leadership styles and decisions to deal with this situation, because you would think in a Star Trek utopian world, like Picard will, do everything in his power to find the peaceful solution first. In TNG, his style seems to, he will try everything in his power, especially even in the first episode with him and Q. Like, he's doing everything to be ambassadorial or whatever, very open. And that's how Pike is in his style and in this story in particular, versus Kirk, who's just like running in. Because traditionally, not just in Star Trek, we know usually the aggressive posture tends to be the bad one, like the one you don't. Because in other episodes of TOS, we'll have another captain besides Kirk who's just so trigger happy and, this and that. And it usually goes bad. So, any thoughts on the fact that that actually seems to be the winning strategy in this particular comparison of stories?
I think it ultimately depends on the situation when it comes to aggression. We often meet aggression as being violent, and there is if we look at it neutrality, or as best we can with in a neutral state of mind, if it's possible to, the obvious weakness to and flaw with being constantly aggressive is you're likely to not have a great defense, or being offensive. You may not have a good defense. So if there's a chip in the armor somewhere and you don't have good defense, that could lead to a total meltdown or a critical blow that you can't recover from in time. Maybe I'm just thinking of combat sports. I apologize. But just with this strategy, though, at least with, I'll use both in this case. I'll try to compare, but I mean this in like a maybe different way. I feel like with Pike's influence, to Kirk, he was able to, while he kept adding things to this like equation, he did so with like bluffs instead of like full on like. And I appreciate the end or the afterwards where they go to warp and Kirk basically says, "Yeah, we probably should have shot him down, but I don't know what that would have looked like." So having these two team up in this episode was probably maybe like a fan thing. Maybe people wanted to, don't worry, I'm not going to insult the fans in this one, but just like maybe that was a thing where it's like, yeah, what if Kirk and Pike teamed up in this one instance? How would that have looked differently in Kirk's timeline that we get in prime continuity with TOS?
I think there may be a bit of an intentional meta reference in comparing and contrasting Kirk and Pike in Strange New Worlds episode in particular, in the sense that I think it might have been intentionally meta to kind of represent how, according to Star Trek history, I can't remember the actor's name. I think his last name is Hunter, who played the original Pike. You know how he's often criticized, like the reason they remade and made a different pilot and went with a different casting for the captain is because people said that he just wasn't really like leading man material, the actor who played Pike originally. And maybe there's kind of a meta reference in how we see Kirk and Pike act in this particular story, where Pike is not the guy to take this ship forward on its next 5-year mission or whatever. We need this guy. This guy is young, younger, has like crazy fresh ideas and things in his mind, where, again, to use the philosophical definitions, Pike is obviously extremely more conservative.
Yep.
and Kirk is extremely more liberal or progressive
Oh,
in
I
it.
agree. No, you're right. Progressive, conservative.
Right. And that idea that Kirk comes up with on his own to go off in a shuttle and then come back with a bunch of drone mining ships to, make this bluff a reality. I could not like pretend Kirk wasn't in the episode and we're
Yep.
watching Strange New Worlds and it's just Pike and company. I could not possibly imagine Pike's character going, "Wait, I got an idea," and running away and coming back with
It
a
sounds
bunch
out
of
there.
drone mining.
I agree with you.
I could not even imagine the Pike character doing that.
It's a little out of character if he did that, so I agree with you.
Yeah, coming up with the idea and then executing it. Nah, that it feels so much more Kirk, like especially young Kirk. Younger than we're the younger version of Kirk compared to Kirk in Legacy later. Um, I just couldn't see Pike. I don't know. Could we see Picard doing something like that? I don't know.
I'm not sure, but like I said, the absence of like if Pike is well that too. If Pike, I don't know if he's both Spock and Bones to Kirk in this episode of Strange New Worlds.
Oh yeah, kinda. Yeah, kinda.
Because we don't have because again that's why I mean like I feel like
Yeah, because also Spock's not
he's
Spock
not
because he was not with Kirk. So yeah, yeah. You're right though. Pike is a little bit of combination of McCoy and Spock in the original episode.
because as Bones says. Something 3 billion people 3 billion galaxies 3 billion universes or whatever you can't beat this there can't be one Kirk or whatever you can't beat this one Kirk.
Yeah, and what did old Pike say? Maroon Pike at the end of the episode to young Pike. He was like, we've tried so many different things, but there's like no scenario where you're in command and it works, or something like that.
Yeah, that's I've seen that trope in other things. I can't remember what's been in, but
Yeah, but it's also taken in the context of the universe and the episode. That's a horrible thing to hear from your future self.
it is. This is like that's what I mean by like this premise is kind of cracked in a way where it's like you are fated
Okay.
to die. Like you are given like the exact knowledge of when you are going to die and how you are going to die, and if you do not, like it's so like one might say it's quite forced by the writers to kind of make this man suffer and kind of come to terms with that in a way. I I guess. I guess.
But having seen the show, all the episodes released currently, I don't we don't know yet what the solution of
This
this
is
arc
true.
is going to be ultimately, and it seems like they're going to leave this up for like the end of the series. I guess like the end of season 5 whenever we get there. Knowing the writing I've seen so far in this show, the resolution is not going to be predictable or easy to predict. Like it's not going to be straightforward. There's going to be some type of twist about how things are ultimately going to turn out by the end of the series. And I'm just saying, usually the writers on this show are a bit more savvy than to just deliver what you expect.
If this character arc for Pike is supposed to be like a an analogy for a cancer patient,
Huh.
okay, I get it. I
Let
get
me
it.
think about this. Keep going, but keep going. Explain more. I need you to hold my hand a little longer.
You have either a coin toss of depending on all the treatment that you go through, you either remission and it's gone, or it comes back and it takes your life. I didn't think of that.
But explain how that would play out for Pike in the series.
He is given the knowledge that he has a condition in a way where he's going to die. Now, it doesn't mean he has cancer. I just mean like
Yeah, he has like a terminal diagnosis.
there's a thank you. There we go. He's terminal diagnosis of okay. This in this case, he knows when he's going to die. People with cancer don't know when, other than like if they go through treatment and such.
And just for clarity's sake, he's not going to die, but get maimed and not be the same.
Get maimed and potentially like not be able to, walk operate
As
normally
we see
yeah,
happen to Spock in the alternate timeline.
exactly.
No, I'm all ears hearing how this plays out to be like the um, cancer treatment analogy.
So again, apologies if I've triggered anybody or if this is really offensive. So is this episode stating that you've tried treatment or you've done your treatment and it's not working and you are fated to die by cancer?
Regardless of what you do. Okay, I got you. There's a dramatic movie that was nominated for Best Picture in the early 80s that is like this storyline that you just put out. It's a very popular movie amongst people of my age or older or people who are just like movie buffs. There's a Robin Williams movie from the early 80s called Awakenings, and it explores this exact topic that you just brought up.
Interesting.
And it's a very good example of getting into that subject and, kind of like thinking about it, considering the situation that you just painted. It's that situation. It's not cancer, but it's a medical thing analogous to.
Of course, yeah.
And it's a really good movie. Highly recommend Awakenings.
Can't wait for it on Best Picture.
It's good. Robin Williams is brilliant. Robin Williams,
Right,
rest in
man.
peace. He was so brilliant in so many movies. If you're interested in the premise that Isaac just laid out, watch Awakenings if you haven't seen it yet.
There you go. Nice plug.
All right. Anything else before we can rate this? Because the host is fading out of the timeline.
Just to pick up back where I left off with what was it? With just transplanting certain minor characters to each other. Obviously, flipping them to we take the like I said, we take the in TOS, we take the bigoted, not Chekhov character and put him over in the Strange New Worlds Bird of Prey Romulan ship as like the sub commander.
Yes.
And I said, I feel like there's a mutiny that's about to happen. Excuse me. It does not. But over in the TOS side of things, I definitely liked the Centurion. I think that was a good way to bounce and I think enhance that performance and of the character with the captain of that Bird of Prey Romulan ship.
Something else I noticed about the TOS sub commander that I kind of liked when I was just rewatching it today that I hadn't thought about before. So obviously there are Klingons in TOS, but when we see Klingons, they, because of makeup, etc., they pretty much always have the same skin tone as each other. But I liked how the Romulans showed variance. Like, the actual commander, Mark Leonard, is more like olive skin tone. And then obviously the sub commander kind of looks more Caucasian or Anglo. And I just think it was cool because, especially in TOS, but in Star Trek in general, well, we get more exceptions in newer Trek, but generally, if it's an alien species, they kind of just all look kind of similar with different facial features or different marking patterns if they're that type of species. I just thought it was interesting because you would never see that with the Klingons in TOS.
Oh, the part where when the inside the Bird of Prey, they're like, okay, we got to clean up part of the ship, take out all the debris, including the Centurion, and throw him out the airlock. Flipping hardcore, man. That guy was savage. Like, seriously, like, I don't know if that was a statement for towards Kirk to say, like, I'm willing to bury my dead basically in space. Maybe I missed the point. No, there's a point to that. I forget what the point is in that instance, but man, that was hardcore. And then the nuke. I'm like, holy Toledo, that's like also more hardcore. Like, this guy means business.
You just remind me of two not unimportant but lower tier things I wanted to bring up. I'm sure this has already been thought of before Star Trek. It's just funny to me how the sub commander is obviously the commander below the commander, but or with the submarine motif. I never served in the Navy, but I'm sure they talk about that all the time on Navy vessels. How the sub commander is the sub commander, or can be both and different at the same time. I'm sorry, that's a dumb thing to bring up.
No, that's kind of funny. I just got it. I was like, oh wait, the sub commander. That's the plain words. Thank you.
Exactly. And then something, because every time you brought up atomics, it made me think of the Romulan weaponry and how it was different, like a different technology on their ships versus what the Federation standard is. And as someone who has seen the original cut with original effects, seen the TOS remaster, and then obviously the deployment of their weapon in Strange New Worlds, the way it's depicted there. Did they call it their plasma weapon?
They called it plasma, I believe.
Yeah, it looks like a big fireball that comes out of the front of their saucer.
Plasma.
Yeah, so seeing all three iterations, this is basically like a special edition upgrade and then a special edition upgrade of the same effect.
Yes.
I think it gets better every time. The effect. Going from the original effect, which I'm just going to say, I mean, it was fine for the 60s, I guess. But when you watch it with modern eyes, it's a really not greatly realized effect. The plasma bolt or burst or beam or whatever you want to call it. And it looks better in the TOS. And I love the way it's interpreted with the modern special effects. So just for me, I just think they did well improving it both times. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. Anything else before we rate it?
What's a rating?
We'll do Strange New Worlds first, I guess, since that's the order we spoke about them and the order you watched them. Strange New Worlds, what are those things called? Those monk crystals?
I'm calling them crystallized TARDISes.
And, okay, fine, that's fine. Crystallized TARDIS. And by the way, I know this happens a lot in Star Trek, but what the heck kind of world are you going to live in where such a thing even exists in Klingon culture or what have you?
It's called the script.
I mean, how many times from Sunday would timelines get screwed up if such a thing existed? It's not readily available, but available enough. Even if a Federation person doesn't convince Klingons to let them use it, wouldn't there be Klingons just using it for whatever their reasons are, official and unofficial?
Also, was Future Pike a time traveler, or was it a figmentation in his mind? Because how did those crystals end up exactly in his room? Bootstrap paradox, never mind, or whatever that thing's called. I don't know what bootstrap paradox is.
No, I think Pike used the crystal. Maroon Pike used it to go back to that Pike, and then it was used again. It's sort of like, in new Doctor Who, there's a character who has a device that works similarly.
Okay.
But obviously you haven't met that character yet. We're going to go with Crystal TARDISes out of 5 Strange New Worlds.
I think I butchered this episode to bits, but seeing as how I regret my score for Section 31, I think give it like I said, a 1. And I said now I was in a bad mood, and so I think I said like 2. This will get a 2.5 out of 5 Crystal TARDISes.
Oh, so you gave 2 on Section 31?
No, I gave it a 1 originally.
Oh,
I still, I guess like that's in like the episode, but I was in a bad mood, so I think I give it like it's a 2, just because I was impressed with Sean's score, so I kind of upped mine.
Oh, okay.
Retroactively,
I get you. This
one, it's watchable on its own. As a person who it's their first episode of Strange New Worlds, I could easily follow this plot line. It was all there, and I didn't, because I hadn't seen the TOS counterpart episode. I didn't realize it was a homage, and I will call it that, or at least like a remake, but not in like the derogatory sense.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, because going in, did you even know why I chose these two episodes?
I did
to be
not. I
watched?
had no idea that they
Oh,
may
okay.
be similar, or at least early after. Like once I started watching TOS, I just assumed like afterwards, I was like, oh, maybe there's some similar elements to. Oh, we're doing that. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I will
yeah.
not. It's not losing points. No, well, is it? Okay, it's not losing points for
It's your own
necessarily
opinion, your own
remaking.
rules.
Yeah, I guess I can. It's not remake. It's not losing points for being a remake. Like on the premise. I don't know. I it was hard to find things that I like, but objectively, like I guess worked as the like because ultimately a lot of it is, as you said, it's all for Pike and not for anybody else. It's all like his story. So I guess it is that I have cancer acceptance and I'm going to die with from it.
Uh-huh.
So that to me, at least when I say it like that, that's powerful. And I guess he just needed, maybe it didn't need to be that long, but I don't know. I still give it a 2.5 out of 5 for that. Your score for this episode, sir, of Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, and especially when you brought up Section 31 and your comparison of scores. If I think about Section 31, this episode of Strange New Worlds is immensely, immensely better than Section
Couldn't agree more.
31.
I agree with you.
And the chasm is so great. And I don't fully hate Section 31 as much as most people do. Not necessarily on the podcast, but just people in general,
Yeah, of course.
fans in general. I'm not. It doesn't turn me off that much, but it's still a chasm between that and this for me.
I'll say I'm
And
glad it was a movie now that I looking back on it.
and well, spoiler for future Romulans bearing gifts, but I have already told you and other people offline that I would have rather had episode 306 of Strange New Worlds produced into like a 90-minute TV movie any freaking day over
Well,
Section 31.
I haven't
But
seen
we'll
it, so
discuss that in a future episode.
I have no idea.
This episode, I'm torn between two scores. I guess I'll give the safe rating rather than the more provocative rating of 4 out of 5 for me. But especially when I was watching this whole season for my first time, I freaking love this episode. At that point, it was certainly one of my favorite of Strange New Worlds up to that point. It was not everything I wanted from Strange New Worlds when it came out, but it was definitely something I liked that I got because Strange New Worlds existed as a show. So yeah, I wouldn't call it perfect or anything, but whatever criticisms I have of it, they seem minor to me in the overall episode itself. So yeah, that's that. And then, did you have a measure for Balance of Terror? I have one. If you don't,
Go ahead.
I just really like those Centurion helmets.
Centurion helmets it is.
Out of 5 Centurion helmets, how much are you gonna give Balance of Terror?
Oh, this just feels bad. I really don't like rating stuff. I just say like I'd watch this again, versus I wouldn't watch it again. The previous episode, fuck, 4 out of 5. Point taken off for the ending of the episode not being in silence, or at least not playing out the theme, or not theme, but just the fanfare at the end. Like we didn't need that, and I will not talk about. On a very personal note, but this is for the entire series of TOS, I don't like the remake, or I don't like the special editions. I wish they. Okay, I won't say it didn't happen, but I wish the originals were more readily available.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I just have to say about the effects. Oh, what you just said about the remastering. Like I am with Star Wars special editions, most of them are okay with me. I also wish I could have, the unspecialized versions more readily available. But the changes that do happen are mostly okay with me in Star Wars and in the remastered original series in general. Some of them could have been executed better in the remaster, like ones we haven't discussed, but I'm largely okay with them. I'm also torn between two scores on this one, both of them higher than the scores I had in mind for Strange New Worlds. But before I reveal it, I have to say also, it's almost impossible for me to separate like my personal opinion of Balance of Terror, and it's just one of those episodes that has an incredibly high reputation as an episode from TOS and Star Trek in general. It's so important for so many reasons. It's largely the first time we get to see this submarine battle dynamic in Star Trek, and generally people really like those types of Star Trek stories when they're done well, regardless of what series it is or movie. And it's impossible for me to separate the legacy that this one episode has, regardless of my personal feelings. That being said, I have to give it a powerful. I went with the conservative score on the Strange New Worlds. I'm going to go with the more progressive score of 5 out of 5 Centurion helmets. I don't give out 5 out of 5s much on any of my podcasts, but this episode it's too significant in Star Trek history for a lot of reasons. Some we mentioned and some we didn't mention. It's a perfect TOS episode. Now, of course, there's other perfect TOS episodes that have a completely different flavor and theme, and so that doesn't mean everyone's going to think, I think these two episodes are perfect. Obviously, someone could maybe agree with me on one, but not the other, or none at all. But it's just like, what else could you want from one TOS episode than what this one delivers? It's TOS at some of its finest, depending on what your type of story preference is for Star Trek. Results may vary. But yeah, that's it. And I'm glad this has finally happened. And hopefully not the last time we'll have you on the podcast to discuss Strange New Worlds, because it's not a perfect show, but I just really enjoy watching it on Paramount Plus. I really do. And of course I like new fans of Star Trek to like Strange New Worlds, but I really love when longer time fans appreciate Strange New Worlds in general. Because we already know they're going to have 5 seasons, but I would be elated if I found out that they're going to do 7. But the thing I was going to say earlier that I had for the last of the episode, after we finished talking about them, I just remembered it. So you mentioned something about, what did you mention about the future of Star Trek?
Oh yeah, past I guess Voyager or whatever came after, like whatever was after TNG.
But were you saying something about like Paramount needs to do something, like add something new or something?
Well, yeah, I just assumed they keep either, I don't want to say playing it safe, but they just keep treading on established characters. And when I first heard about Discovery, I thought it was going to be in the future. Like after, like years after TNG and I guess Voyager and Deep Space Nine, because the aesthetics, the look of all the ships,
that makes sense,
lends itself to that. I still would have probably been like, okay, this looks like a contemporary, like future science fiction ship, and doesn't feel Star Trek to me. Well, whatever. I'm just a curmudgeon old man. So don't listen to me. I'm just yelling at a cloud as I usually do. So I still would have accepted, like, okay, no, this is probably something different. All the alien species look different. That's a good thing. I say moving away, but let's go into the future. And then they say it's a prequel to TNG, and I'm like, or TNG, sorry, well that too, but TOS. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that was really hard for me to wrap my head around when I had just seen like the first 2 or 3 episodes of Discovery.
Yeah, so I was looking at it of like, maybe I'll watch a series because it's it's going to be set far off in the future or whatever. The technology looks, like the most advanced it's looked since, I guess, the Kelvin timeline, but obviously it's taking influence from that. So let's go into the future and see what these guys can do. And they didn't go into the future; they went in the past instead. So I'm like, I'll pass. Thanks very much.
So This may never happen, but I would like if one day you had seen more Discovery, even though you'll probably hate yourself for watching more Discovery. But I wish at some point in the future you would have more of a understanding of Discovery, like a base knowledge of watching the show, to where we could continue this conversation line that we were just on.
Well, good thing it's all on recording. So if you ever if I ever owe you a favor, it's like, well, there you go. You can cash in that favor and say like, Isaac, Discovery. I'm like, son of a gun.
I don't know if it'll ever happen, but it would be cool if we got to that point at some point. So the thing I was going to say earlier, you made me think of when you kind of brought this up was last I checked, and it's been a few days, but in modern times, Star Trek had been owned by Paramount, Viacom, in the Paramount Plus days and prior to the Paramount Plus days. And in Star Trek news in the real world, it's been a week or so since the sale of Paramount to Skydance Entertainment became official. So essentially, Skydance is going to take over the reins as executives in charge of the IP of Star Trek.
Oh, interesting.
And in the current library of CBS programs, Star Trek is currently considered one jewel in the Triple Crown of their IPs that CBS Paramount has. And it's already been stated by the new owners and whoever's going to be kind of managing the restructuring of the company now that Skydance is in charge, and the old regime will be out, not just for Star Trek, but obviously the whole network. But they have already stated, Skydance, that we care a lot about Star Trek. It's one of our big three, and we're definitely putting out more. They didn't say exactly. We already know there's a Starfleet Academy series coming. We're not talking about that. They just said, last I read, that they have 2 things in the works right now, early stages. They didn't say if it 2 series, is it 2 movies, is it a movie and a series. They didn't really say. I think I heard something. One of the things might involve Kirk and Spock in the Kelvin timeline. I think I just read that recently. And then the other thing, no one has any idea what that could possibly be. But I hope this works out under new management. They say they want to push hard into their IP, but that doesn't always go well. I don't want to name other examples of IPs that we all loved and then they did more and then people weren't happy all the time. I don't want to bring up other examples, but I hope this really works out going forward. And I hope we start getting even more varied new Trek content that has an appeal to some segments of the Trek audience or the mainstream audience or whatever. So yeah, watch this space and we'll discover what comes next. That sounds like a pun I set up ahead of time. Well, closing out the show today, this is Eric.
This was Isaac.
And until next time,
don't push too hard or else you're getting hemorrhoids and you'll be stuck on preparation H for the rest of your life.
And may the wind be at our backs.
Beware Romulans bearing gifts.